It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell are here. We're going to talk about Week D, the releases from Microsoft, new versions of Windows. We'll also talk about putting AI to work. The Amazon Echo now has an AI era. And then, no, you're not going to be able to get Office for free supported by ads, or are you? I don't know. Paul will explain next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 921, recorded Wednesday, February 26th, 2025. Regret as a service. Hey, all you winners and dozers, gather round. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we cover the latest Microsoft news. Week D version, not
Best
Week
kind of
T version. Week D version. Paul Thurrott is here from Thurrott.com. Hello, Paulie.
I'm afraid to say anything. This is like the 8th time we've tried to start this recording.
No one knows that except everybody watching. Also, from beautiful Madeira Park, British Columbia, Mr. Richard Campbell. Hello, Richard.
Hello. And it is beautiful. I'll give you the outside shot if you like.
I always am so jealous.
There you go.
Oh, it is. It's a pretty day.
It's a beautiful day. And if you look close, the sea lions are out there. They've been eating herring and they're rafting at the moment. They're all holding on to each other in a big pool.
How fun.
And they regulate their heat by holding one flipper up in the air. So they all look like sharks. It's weird.
Well, that's a beautiful view, Richard. Thank you for sharing that with us. And now on with the show.
Very natural, Leo. Thank you.
That is the best segue I've ever heard in my life. Yeah,
you are the master at this.
As good as it gets.
Welcome to Week D. Is there a Week E ever?
Yeah, there can be, right?
4 times a year.
Theoretically.
Those couple of weeks a year where you have a
four times a year.
How
Tuesday?
Does Microsoft judge that? Do they start the weeks on Sunday or Monday?
It's either Monday or Sunday. I'm not actually sure, but either one works. And
well, yes, but
well, I mean, that's how either one's fine. I mean,
getting a fifth week would require extending into a Monday, I would think.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe it is Monday. I don't really know, actually.
No one
You have
knows.
stumped me.
Yeah.
I will ask ChatGPT what it thinks about that.
Let's go ask ChatGPT.
Sure
For
he has
purposes of the service lifecycle, does Microsoft begin its
Probably
week
Tuesday.
on a Sunday?
Seriously,
or a
it's
Monday?
probably Tuesday.
I guess that's when the thing's supposed to deploy. So
Right.
Yeah. Well, no. Okay. Actually, it kind of doesn't matter because it's the 5th Tuesday of the month. So the month is a thing, and it doesn't matter what the week starts on. The Tuesday, that will always be the 5th Tuesday, regardless of how they measure.
But not
weeks.
every month has 5 Tuesdays.
You have not stumped me, Mr. Laporte. I figured it.
There'll only be 4 of them in a given year.
I see you have the new AI-enabled Amazon Echo. That's why, right?
No, this is the
Actually, that's a Pixel.
non-AI engineered Google, whatever it is,
That's the Pixel tablet. Yeah, I'm looking at one as we speak.
Every third picture is a black screen that shows nothing. And then when I say to it, hey, Jay, I'd like to not see that photo again, it says, I'm sorry. We don't know how to do that on this device.
Well, you just have to enjoy the blackness.
Yep.
It's a brief period of rest. And
Yeah.
So there was, let's see, Week D preview update. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're correct. And well, you're correct unless you actually wanted to get it. I have yet to see it on any of my computers, but 23, 24H2 are getting the same set of updates, essentially. And it's what we talked about before. So this has made its way into the release preview channel in the Insider program, and now it's here in preview form. And then in 2 weeks on Patch Tuesday in March, I can't believe it's already March or almost March, we'll get these in stable. So for now, you can avoid it, but then, in about 2 weeks, you can not avoid it. Mm-hmm. So in keeping with the Patch Tuesday from this past month, I guess technically from this month, minor updates. I did a little episode on Hands on Windows about the Patch Tuesday updates from, I guess it's February and March and potentially beyond. probably be June by the time you see that, but at some point we'll be able to go through that. So there's not anything dramatic, like I said. So sharing from the taskbar, if you have an app that's open or pinned to the taskbar and you right click to get, and it has a jump list with documents, you'll see a share item next to those documents, so you can share right from there.
It's a nice feature.
Yeah. That's about it. That's important. I mean, the spotlight has changed in a minimal way, both on the lock screen and on the desktop, just for ease of access to the identifying that image that you're seeing. You can snooze Windows Backup in File Explorer. So if you've chosen to turn off folder backup for one or more of those folders, it has that kind of annoying little icon like Start Backup. You can say, hey, turn this off for a little while. You can't turn it off, but you can snooze it. So better than nothing. And that's most of it. I mean, there's more, obviously, but most of it's just fixes and minor changes. So nothing dramatic, which is, a good way to start the year. I think.
And just in the era of completeness, there are 5 Tuesdays in April, July, September, and December this year. So
I'm glad you did the math. Thank you.
I want to double check.
Did you ask Emacs for that, or was that?
No, I did. I looked at a calendar. It's weird. I know.
Oh, that's so weird. That's jeez, man. What do you not use technology?
Way.
I flipped through a paper calendar like a caveman, and then I burned it for fire because I'm dying over here. So, yeah, actually, in terms of Windows servicing, if you think about it, though the months that follow the months that Richard just noted are a little bit of a break, right? Because those weeks there's actually a 3-week break, if you will, between week D and Patch Tuesday.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we'll get the first one of those in May? I think you said April was the first one.
Yeah. April's the first 5th Tuesday. So
yeah.
May will have an extra, it'll be a little delayed.
And now
whatever
we'll
do.
We'll muddle through it somehow. So increasingly, thanks to Microsoft, I feel like I occasionally have to say things that I feel like people will be listening to maybe in their car or out walking, and they'll have no idea what I'm talking about, right? But I'm going to launch into it anyway, because what else are you going to do? So in the Insider program, we are still in this window where if you have a machine enrolled in the beta channel, you have the option, you don't have to accept updates for 24H2 instead of 23H2. And what that means is people in the beta channel, depending on what they've done, will see different updates going forward. So if you have moved forward into 24H2, you are getting the same builds that we get in the dev channel. And I've signed on to the dev channel myself on my Surface laptop because I'm trying to test these features that are unique, and some of them to Copilot Plus PCs, right? Like recall and click to do and so forth. And then you also just get whatever features that are coming down the pike. So I'm a little forward from most, I guess, in this capacity. I'm actually behind most in other capacities, but whatever. So dev and beta, if you're in 24H2 this past week, got an update to what Microsoft is not actually now calling semantic search. That was the name for a little while, but we don't know what the name's going to be, but I'll keep using that term until
I can't imagine how they didn't use the word AI. Like, it's insane to me.
Copilot search.
So obvious.
So I think possibly going back as far as within a couple of months of the initial, what was then called Bing Chat introduction, Microsoft started talking about this thing, which has different names now. Its names are legion. Custom GPT was the initial name. It's a little technical of a name. Some of the AI vendors are calling these things apps, but the idea is that you are grounding the AI in a specific set of documents, or maybe a folder on a computer, whatever it might be. And of course, as soon as I heard that, I thought, well, I'm going to do this because I have this ginormous hundreds of gigabytes archive of work data going back 30 years-ish. And I often have to find things and I can't, right? And so now you'll be able to prompt or query AI, whatever the AI is, when this system is enacted, and, get information out of it, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like this is technically possible somewhere today, somehow, something. But in Windows directly, what they're doing is they're adding this feature, which again may or may not be called semantic search. So you can search from the search box on the taskbar, which opens the search pane, which is now Windows key plus S, right? I got to make sure here. Yeah, on this computer, I have the wrong computers. Yeah, so up through 24H2, up through Copilot plus PCs, Windows key plus Q or S would launch the search pane, right, with search highlights, et cetera, et cetera. This one, I don't know why I'm looking. This, I already know this one doesn't have it. And then you can search in the File Explorer, right? And if you've used this search, you know that neither one of these things works worth a damn. And
it's search on Windows. Don't be silly. It doesn't work at all.
Yeah, right. I mean, Steve Jobs made fun of this with Mac OS Tiger like 25 years ago, and we still haven't caught up.
Guy's been dead for a decade and it's still funny.
He's still right. Yeah. So, yeah. It's unbelievable. But, you know, I guess that's what we live with here in the Windows world. So semantic search is one method by which AI might solve this problem for us, right? It's the technique basically behind recall, you know, this notion of, you're not actually searching. Well, technically it is metadata, right? But it's not metadata in the files. Like you have a photograph and maybe the metadata has like the date taken. And if you were an idiot, you might have went in there and typed names of people that or something.
We're not going to do that. But
no one does this, right? So what it does is some combination of image recognition in the case of images. I don't know how it's doing this with text, but
I mean, it would make sense for when it takes the snapshots for it to do as much analysis at the time to create a set of tags essentially to make
to create that
search
metadata, exactly, to make the search fast. That's right.
Yeah.
I don't actually know that's how it does it. It kind of doesn't matter, but integrating this type of search into Windows search, right? Which again, you could access in those two different places, is a good idea. If it works, I mean, it's a good idea. We never really solved the index problem, right? So on my own computers, I do the full disk index thing. You can turn that on. It's something I bet most people don't do.
If you have an urge to have your computer up to stuff when you're not using it, and it's a way.
Before we moved to SSDs, it was a way to create like a chattering sound because your
constant noise from your machine.
You know,
now all it does is speed up the demise of your SSDs.
Now we have SSDs that are played enough to die silently, so we don't have to worry about that. It's fun. Yeah. So they've been rolling this out slowly, and of course it's Copilot plus PC only, right? Because it's using these on disk. I keep wanting to look at this computer. I have the wrong computer here, so I'm sorry. So if you have a Copilot plus PC, Snapdragon or x86, you can go into your Windows Update history and you'll see the four, they're LLMs or SLMs. They don't call it that. They're called AI updates that constitute the models used for this purpose and also for recall. There were many more models on the computer. I actually don't know how to find any of them. But those four are you can see them in Windows Update. So it is using those. I do know that. And I also know that it does not work for me. I have not gotten this to work. It is slowly rolling out. To see if you have it, you have to meet those qualifications. But if you go to File Explorer and go to that little search box up in the corner, or if you bring up the search bar, the search interface, there's a search bar at the top. It will have that little pink, purple, glittery thing we were always doing for AI because apparently this is a musical theater from the 1970s. I don't know, but whatever. We've settled on this color scheme. I don't know.
It could be, the Technicolor Dreamcoat or Copilot.
Exactly.
Sure which, yeah.
The Wiz, something like that, So I think I have to say this in sort of a theoretical sense. I think this is a cool idea. I hope this solves the problem. The other way would be literally to use an AI and not train it, but have it assess this data and I index it essentially. I don't think
the retrieval augmented generation RAG is the mechanism for having it available without having to retrain the model over and over again.
Yep. So we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the show.
Combination of RAG and semantic search together is supposed to be the magic, right?
Yeah. Yep. The simplest version of this is you could open Copilot anywhere. You get Copilot or go to ChatGPT or whatever, and you upload a document. And then you start asking it questions, right? Yeah. So imagine that, but for your whole, file system, kind of cool.
This kind of something we'd actually want, right? Like,
something I want for sure.
Yeah. Tell me more about my stuff.
Yes. Yep. And I spend so much time looking for something I wrote.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 30 plus years now. I have a lot of documents. I have the entire books that I've written over many years.
You used to be able to buy a Google appliance. It was a 1-year use blue box. I got a few of them back in the day. You stick it in a rack, and it would do indexing on your file store. It was what we wanted.
Yeah, they also briefly had a browser plugin for individuals that would do something like that as well, right? In addition to internet search. But now these companies have those desktop clients for the storage things they do, and whatever that kind of went away.
Yeah, but it's coming back now. It's just software, and we call it large language models and RAG and semantic search, but it's just software.
Yeah. Yeah. And the language of AI is so foreign that now I know what it's like to listen to me talk to someone else about tech topics, because I'm like, what are you talking about? You sound like you're speaking Dutch.
Yeah. I recognize every one of the words you're saying. I just don't know what they mean in the combination.
But they don't mean anything together. And I wish you would stop doing that. You're freaking me out. Yeah. And so anyway, this is in the Dev and Beta channel on 24H2 if you're in that, but it's CFR, so it's rolling out over time. You'll get it when you get it. I have it partially on my Surface.
But I like this idea that it's almost an element of recall, which is really doing photo scanning of your screen captures. Now, actually scan the photos in my OneDrive, and so there's information available to them.
That's right. Yeah, and that's how right. So I should.
This is what it should have been all along.
You mentioned a crucial part of the story, which is that the initial release of this, which it's preview. It's not even. I don't even call it a beta, right? But was for text and for different document types. And now the update they added this past week is for photos that are in your OneDrive, right? That's exactly right. Yeah. So you might, you go to search, and it's just I have to make things up, but green sweater, and then it will look through your photos now, and in addition to whatever documents you might have. And, and of course in Windows search, you can confine it and say, I just want this to be files, and it will find things that match. And it's interesting to do. It's again, I'm eager. What I really want is that RAG functionality that Richard is talking about, where I can point an AI at something. And you know what? I'm sorry. We're going to talk about this a little bit later. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but this is something I've always been interested in. I feel like we're right on the cusp of.
You're getting to after 2.5 years of hardcore hype, we're getting to features people will actually benefit from.
That's right.
It's taken a while, but we're getting
there. Yeah. So 2 weeks-ish ago, some time ago, they issued an update also to Dev and Beta. I think it might have been the first of those releases that went out to both, where they said, hey, all the recall data you have that you were storing so you could find stuff, we're going to delete all of it. And it's because we're going to make a big update under the covers to recall. And we'll talk about that later. Okay. So this one has that big update to recall, which they have not discussed in the slightest. So I have no idea what it is.
Because not explaining recall has gone so well for them so far.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, it's now that we have all accepted it, recall is fine. We will stop talking about it again. It's like, wait, guys, you got to start talking about it. So I'm sure they will have a separate post at some point. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe what they're actually waiting for is build and where they want to do some, set of announcements, whatever it might be. But it's fair to say that the recall they announced last June has appeared very slowly and has changed and has been updated and, is better and all that stuff. But I also will say, having defended it as much as any human could, I also find myself never using it. And this may be tied to something, again, to that topic I keep alluding to. I apologize for doing that continuously. But, I struggle to use AI on kind of a day-to-day basis, which I think
sure. And I can advocate once again for recall is the perfect tool for just enough administration, where when you're in an elevated privilege level, you want screenshots of everything you're doing, because you don't want to be there longer than you absolutely need to, and you want absolute proof of what you did.
Yeah, I think the best thing that's happened to recall, this is going to sound a little ironic, is taking features out of it and putting those features elsewhere. So like Click to Do, when they first announced it, was a feature of recall where you could bring up a shot from the past and then do things with the text and images you could see on that screen. And that's fine. But I want to do that live. I want to do that in the system, and now you can, again, only in preview. It's not unstable yet or anything like that. But so they pulled that out. And I think that this semantic search is a little bit like that as well, right? That this is kind of they started it with recall. I think, I can only imagine or conject, what they were thinking, but I'm sure at the time they were at kind of a rush schedule. And we want to have something it's cool that we could announce, with these new PCs.
Everything around that whole Snapdragon launch was botched. The dev kits were late. Nobody really defined a useful feature set.
Late
it's
or
silly.
non-existent.
Well, late and then
so late it became irrelevant.
Yeah,
right.
that was on Qualcomm, by the way. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's too bad because
some of it landed on Microsoft too. Like, honest to goodness,
I meant
just indexing content in OneDrive and stuff. Like, just start with that. Something that everybody already has the problem.
I think it was a time to market thing, and I thought because we're only remember, this is a long time later. We're just starting to get these things.
Yeah.
They also at that same show announced the the Windows Copilot runtime, and then never released it. Right. And so now it's in an experimental version of the Windows App SDK. Honestly, it's in really good shape. It's just not available to everybody. So this stuff takes a while. I think they were looking for a little bit of a win. And the thing that makes me feel bad about that is that we've kind of lost track of the fact that like the computers these guys shipped were awesome. Like they're
good,
awesome
machine.
Battery life, great performance.
I just wish I could get a desktop with that.
Yeah, I know. So I'm
really itching to build a machine, and they're just not making it easy for me to do.
We'll get
what
there.
processor do you pick right now?
Yep. I mean, well, and then to me, the next step here, and again, I do this every year, Richard, so you get used to this in time. But I always say, maybe at Build, they will announce that they're bringing these Copilot Plus PC capabilities to computers with GPUs.
Yeah.
What a concept,
nice?
That'd be nice.
1,500 tops, please.
Yeah, right. Because it feels like that's the time for that kind of announcement, but I don't know anything about that. And I would say if you were to go back and find every time I said something like maybe at Build, I was wrong like 97% of the time or something. Like it just doesn't seem to ever happen. So Copilot Plus PC and this stuff, it just seems like it's on a slow boil. So anyway, sorry. And then one minor update to the Snipping Tool in Canary and Dev, but it doesn't say beta, but they're on the same. I don't know. Anyway, it's an app. So you update that app through the store. So Snipping Tool takes screenshots, but it also does screen recordings. And they're adding the ability to, it's the most basic and obvious thing in the world, to trim the beginning and end of the video, right? So a lot of times when you record the screen, you're trying to capture whatever it is.
Yeah,
so you can send it to,
you have that couple of seconds when you turned it on and get yourself in position. You want to cut that off.
And you want to just cut it, right? So I've been
by the way,
using
talk about a machine learning model make everybody happy to automatically default to, hey, can I just trim this to this for you? Is that good?
That's coming. I mean, and it's probably in some tools already, but yes, absolutely. So we'll get there.
The low-hanging fruit for folks, right?
Yep. So in the beta channel, now this is for the people on 23H2. If I could editorialize for 2 seconds, I'm done. That's 2 seconds. No, so back in Windows 8, they added a bunch of new features, a lot of which kind of disappeared, obviously, but some of which persisted. And one of them was this notion of system-wide share. And for share to work, especially back in the beginning, what you needed was apps that would communicate to the system that they were targets for certain types of sharing, right? So
this is no different than cut and paste, right? Like cut and paste is actually
it's kind of next gen cut and paste, I guess you could call it, or whatever. But the idea was I have this image, right click share. Maybe I want to share it via WhatsApp, which is an app you might share with, or Outlook or whatever, right? You might want to share it to an image editing app, and that would be one. That's one. Okay, so this is a common thing we do on phones and mobile devices. Microsoft, obviously, years long attempt to make Windows simple like that work similarly. And share, for whatever it's worth, share what used to be remember over on the side with the I just forgot the charm bar. I almost called it the Captain Crunch bar. The Lucky Charms bar there in the corner. So that disappeared. So now in Windows 10 and now 11, share is more of a pane or window that pops up. They've added things like nearby sharing. So if you have computers on a local network, you can share from computer to computer, which I do a lot. They added, to Richard's point, copy and paste to this interface, right? They've done a lot to try to get people to use this thing. It's pretty clear that no one's really using it because they keep trying. So they took all the meta apps like WhatsApp and Facebook or whatever and made them share targets for things that are compatible with those apps. This is something Meta did not do. Microsoft was just like, we think people will use this. We'd like to do this. So they added it. for Meta, probably for free, right? Just to get it going. You can share it to your phone, right? So no one's using this. So in the beta channel in 23H2, not in 24H2, curiously, they're testing a new way to share. They're not getting rid of the old way, but in the same way that you drag a window around and you get that little bar at the top for Snap, where you can pull it up and you get the layouts and you can use one of the layouts. If you can drag a file, and if you drag a file now instead of a window, you'll get a different pane, and this is a drop target for share. So it's a different way to share. They will get you to share somehow.
The joke is that everybody wants this, right? Like you always have this problem. It's just that you don't think to use it, and every time you try and use it, it doesn't work.
Yes, and I think this is that companion app in Windows to connect to my Pixel 9 phone.
Mm-hmm. Any given time, that's doing something different. Mostly it's annoying me because I haven't configured it the way it wants it configured. It wants to notify me all the time about everything.
Yeah, it's sorry.
But it's very much that dynamic of, hey, I just want to throw a picture over here. And it turns out easier to just go to Google Photos and go download it than it is to try and make
the tried and true email yourself, which, by the way, is one of the options in Share, hilariously, which is sort of a capitulation of sorts. But the issue I have with this is not that I don't think it's a good idea or whatever. I feel like there should be one way to do these things, you know. And if you think back to the original version of Windows 11, when you did a right click on a file or a folder or whatever, or you looked at the command bar in the File Explorer, the common actions that you might use on files like cut, copy, paste, and share didn't have captions.
Right.
So no one knew what they meant. They were like Egyptian.
They were little random icons. It could be the top or the bottom of the dialog.
Yeah, so those are easy to ignore. So now 24H2, they've added those back. They've added them to at least to the context menu bit. I don't think they're in File Explorer in the command bar, but whatever. And they've improved share innumerable times. Like I said, I don't think anyone's using the feature, whatever, but I don't like having too many ways to do the same thing. I kind of feel like they should standardize.
You've been talking about Microsoft for many decades, and you have a problem with too many ways to do things. Like this is a good way to be frustrated.
Yep. So, look, one of the goals of Windows 11 was to reduce that kind of thing. It's a support nightmare too, right? Not just for the people that support users, but also just for Microsoft itself. I mean, you have all these different UIs for the same thing, and it's like, guys, figure out something.
Larry Wall calls that good. In Perl, it's they call it Tim Toady. Right? There's more than one way to do it.
Yeah. Well,
but that's Perl, and nobody really wants to use Perl. So.
Yeah. Right. So it clearly worked out fine for them.
Well, I mean, maybe I don't know. So anyway, we'll see what happens. It's possible they'll test this. People won't like it. They might not put it in Windows. Then again, knowing Windows, they'll absolutely put it in Windows. They're also screwing around with the all apps view in the start menu, right? And so now there's a grid view, which to me isn't really much of a grid, but instead of having like one app per line, all the apps in A and C and E, whatever the letters are, just like in Windows Phone, right back in the day. And then there's a view that's much like, what's it called? The app library in iOS, where
everything's out of order.
Well, they're grouped logically to somebody, and you just like on iOS, you don't get to screw with it. You can't decide what goes where or where they are.
I put my stuff in folders on iOS, but it's never those folders.
No,
those folders are suggestions, recently added, social, productivity, utilities. Creativity. I mean, they're
all right.
random.
So what you just read was a non-alphabetical list of folders.
Yeah.
It's unclear why those things are first. So I'm telling you, Microsoft emulated that almost perfectly.
Nice job.
Because in their screenshot, it's productivity, social, creativity, utilities. It goes on, but
maybe there's a standard taxonomy that we just don't. That you and I just don't know.
I can tell you what the standard is. It's not. Don't do what I want. Do
you always use alphabetical?
In what way? You mean like on a home screen or something?
Yeah, in your start menu. You like alphabetical, right?
Yeah. No, I don't care about that. Honestly, I'm more of a visual ADHD. I kind of like having the office icons together, even though.
So you do like categories then?
Yeah, that kind of thing. But as far as the all apps view goes, whether it's an Android, iPhone, whatever, Windows, that should be alphabetical. And if you're going to use groups like categories with look like folders, I think that should be alphabetical as well. Other than maybe the most recently used thing you might have at the beginning or whatever. But yeah, they're apparently going in their own little direction, and they were very specific. Like, no, you're not going to be able to customize this. You either turn it on or turn it off. It's up to you. But okay, I don't know. Look, we're still messing around with this. Windows
computing.
11.
It's a new paradigm for all of us.
It'll catch on one of these days.
One of these days, we'll
I'm going to go back to Vision and text mode windowing. I just don't. I can't. I don't know what's going on anymore.
Well, and to make it extra bad for me on the iPhone anyway, I've turned off labels on the icons. So
that's very hip these days. To turn
now I just don't know what the hell I'm.
I can't. I could never.
It's just a pile of crap.
So the biggest mistake, I just did this. I've been scrolling around my home screen on the phone. So on iPhone, I went in and said, I want the background to change every hour. And I want it to be like nature photos from my collection.
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
Yep. So then 10 hours in a row, some picture came up and I'm like, I have no idea where that is. So I was like, all right, fine. I'm going to change it a little bit. I'll add cities to it too. I think cities and nature, right? I think I'm hitting about a 30% success. I'll show it to my wife. I'll be like, do you have any idea where this is? And she's like, nope. Is that one of your photos? I'm like, yeah, no, we went there. I don't know what this is. They picked the most obscure photos.
And there's no way to long press it and see what it is.
Right. So I glossed over this earlier, but in this week D update, one of the updates is to Spotlight so you can more easily see what that picture is.
Perfect.
What an idea.
What
you can't do that on iOS. So.
No. It's just a picture. Why do you need to? What do you want?
It's your picture. How come you don't know what it is?
That?
I don't know. That's why I have recall. I don't know. I'm lucky I could find anything.
I was going to remember stuff. That's not a thing.
That's why I took a picture. I'm never going to remember it otherwise. Now I still can't.
All right. I want to ask you about the new Framework laptop. There's some more hardware and stuff, but we're going to take a break and come back. You're watching Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. One hopes their lips are synchronized.
Don't get crazy now.
Not together.
I see. I'm sorry.
Independently.
My mistake.
Yeah. Well, if you want to sync lips while we're doing the ad, you go right ahead, Paul.
We are close. But go on. I'm sorry.
Actually, did you see the video? Who made that? The Pika video of you and Richard in Puerto Vallarta, and they did an AI, and you reach over and hug him?
Jeez. Oh, I showed that to my wife.
It's this split shot too. So he's in Mexico. I'm here.
And we reach across
and he reaches
the
across.
divide.
Yeah. No.
It's wild.
It's creepy.
Did you do that, Anthony? Somebody did it.
Don't you dare show that.
He showed it to me, and then that's
the one. Yeah.
This is AI generated. They're in different. One's in Canada, one's in Mexico, but they love each other. It does. Weird. Fortunately, neither of you look like yourselves in it. So it's
and the objects in the background are not my objects. Like
I like that. Creepy. You're almost like a Steve Buscemi if he had like an older brother or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Unfortunately, Anthony said, "Oh, there's a new AI thing you're going to have to get," and he told me about this and he showed me that, and I did. Yeah. I spent $200 for a year, tried it about 8 times, got terrible results.
Right.
I deeply regret that purchase.
Hey, that's what AI is all about. Regret.
Yeah, regret.
Yeah, it's about generating regret.
Generative regret as a service.
As a service. Yep. Our show. Here's something you won't regret. Our great sponsor, 1Password, has a new product that's really, really great called Extended Access Management. I can explain why you need this by asking you a simple question. Do your end users always work on company-owned devices and IT-approved apps? They're good, aren't they? They never bring their own phones or laptops into work. They never have any rogue programs running in the background, right? Okay, let's get real. So how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged devices and all those shadow IT apps? What is there a way? Yes, there is. 1Password has an answer. Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems Traditional IAM and MDM just can't touch. Imagine your company's security like the quad of a college campus. You've got those lovely little brick paths between the ivy-covered buildings. Everything's neat and tidy. Those are the company-owned devices, the IT-approved apps, the managed employee identities. But then, as on every college campus, there are the paths people actually use. They're the shortcuts people really want. They're worn through the grass because they're the shortest line from building A to building B. Of course, people are going to do that. And they're going to do it in your company. Those are the unmanaged devices, the shadow IT apps, the non-employee identities, like contractors. Most security tools only work on those happy little brick paths, but many security problems, occur on the shortcuts. 1Password Extended Access Management is the first security solution that takes those muddy little paths, those unmanaged devices, the apps, the identities under your control. It assures that every user credential is strong and protected, every device is known and healthy, and every app is visible. 1Password is ISO 27001 certified with regular third-party audits. It exceeds the standards set by all the various authorities. They're, as you know, a leader in security. Extended access management is security for the way we really work today. Generally available now to companies who use Okta or Microsoft Entra. It's in beta for Google Workspace customers. You got to find out about this. Secure every app, every device, every identity, even the unmanaged ones at onepassword.com/Windows Weekly. That's all lowercase. The number 1, PASSWORD.com/Windows Weekly. We thank them so much for supporting Windows Weekly. And you support us when you use that address, then they know you saw it here. onepassword.com/Windows Weekly. Let's talk laptops. Oh, Paul, you're muted. You're muted. I think that's France.
So
is that France?
I think it might be Pittsburgh.
It's
like
it's
France,
either
only
France or
different.
Pittsburgh. Yeah. Paris or Pittsburgh. That would be a fun game.
We play this game with people here. It's like Mexican or American,
Nice.
And I know it sounds like this would be horribly obvious, but honestly, sometimes you'd be surprised.
Now we have 2 really good show titles. Regret as a service and Paris or Pittsburgh.
Yeah. The other game my wife and I play when we're out all the time, but it's especially good here because of the language barrier, is Are They on a Date?
Oh, I love doing that.
That's a great one.
And I
love doing that.
You hear
and then
people,
you have to say which date? First date?
Yeah. You hear people talking about themselves in a way that you would never do with a girlfriend or spouse or whatever.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's really,
I love that. Lisa and I do that too.
AI wouldn't be good for that. These are the deep learning problems that AI is solving, and I don't understand the resistance.
AI would never be able to do that, I think. I fear. Sad to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, Lenovo has a new thingamajigger.
Yeah, Lenovo and HP both announced their earnings kind of late in the cycle. We go through this every quarter. We still don't have HPs. I would imagine by next week we will, but Lenovo actually had kind of a blowout quarter, which is interesting.
These are big numbers.
Yeah, these are good numbers. So their revenues and net income, which is profits, are both up 20% year over year.
Wow.
The part of the business that's responsible for PC and smartphone sales, but mostly PCs, right? Operating profit of $1 billion, up almost 10% year over year. Revenues there were $13.8 billion, which is, I didn't do the math on this, but their total revenues were 18.8. So 13.8.
Why Lenovo? That's amazing.
Yeah, they are the world's biggest maker of PCs by, I almost said by volume, by weight, by unit sales,
by weight,
yeah, sure. By weight, yeah.
By nubbies, by little,
by numbin, but yeah, I mean and they had some stuff to say about AI PCs, which include Copilot Plus PCs. They said that 50%,
it couldn't have been Copilot Plus PCs that made the difference here.
No, not overall, but PCs that have NPUs, right? So 15% of total notebook sales were AI PCs in the quarter. They expect AI PCs to be over half of all of their global shipments by late this year.
Wow.
And over 80% by 2027. So they that's what they expect. But overall revenues from PCs were up 10% in the quarter. They have hit a high for market share, 24.3%. And also gaming PCs are doing pretty great for them. And this one there's no data to support this, but they said that commercial PC sales benefited from the Windows 11 refresh, driving recovery in that segment. And maybe, I don't know.
Is that a tap to Microsoft wanted them to say that? Is that what
that's what it feels?
Yeah, it feels like that.
It feels like a relationship quote, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how much you mean to me, Richard. I just wanted to say PC sales. So, I don't know, something.
But their AI server sales are up huge too.
Like almost 60%.
That seems like the big driver. I mean, it's good that all the numbers are up, but this is huge.
Yep.
So this is this vendors desperate to buy anything called AI in the server space? And
all of these companies
buying
that
the
make
third
hardware,
or fourth stringer.
Look, you're a PC maker, right? You're HP, you're Lenovo, whatever. Unless you're Apple, this is not a business that seems like a big growth area, right?
Yeah.
You've kind of plateaued here. So yeah, we're going to have ups and downs, like we're seeing here, a bit of an up, which is nice. But so obviously, Lenovo's been very active in the phone space. I can't say that they've been super successful, but Motorola is probably in the top. Well, now that we have Chinese companies, maybe not anymore, but outside of China, certainly would be in the top 5, but not generating a lot of news, a lot of interest, right? And they're getting into servers, right? And you see that with the chip makers too. So Intel not doing so great, but AMD going gangbusters there, going after Nvidia. So yeah, I mean, these companies are trying to all be part of that. So 59% is great, but then again, it's $3.9 billion in revenue, so it's also relatively small.
It's small compared to the rest of the business.
So it's growing fast, but growing.
Your big units are growing a bit. Your small units are growing a lot. Somebody needs a bonus here. Like they've had a very good year.
They're doing good. Yeah, and for them to be as dominant as they are in whatever the small pond that PCs is,
they definitely have got the red nub cornered.
They get the red nub cornered.
Do they still still put the nubbies in there?
So all mainstream ThinkPads still use it.
Yeah.
They just announced I think I might be reviewing it soon. I don't remember the name. I think it's a ThinkPad X9, which has a slightly different design. I believe that one does not have a nubbin. So we'll see. These are the things that are, Lenovo always had the function key and the control key flipped.
Yep.
And they didn't move it for a long time because that's what their diehard customers expected. But if you want to grow and, it's weird. And I know they have a software switch where you can flip them around. But my argument was always make the weirdos that like those in the wrong place flip them around. Like they should be in the normal place for everyone else. So they finally did fix that. So we'll see. Anyway, obviously they make great computers, and we've got Mobile World Congress coming up. So
you're not going
expect more.
I just bought a NUC.
A NUC, like an actual NUC.
Which
it's from System 76, but it's a NUC. It's and it's going to be a server. It's not even going to have a GUI on it. It's going to be headless.
Oof. Wow.
Well, I want to run Emacs on my iPad, and I think that's the only way I can do it.
I talk a lot about mental health and ADHD, and I don't know if you've ever been diagnosed or anything, but
wait a minute. Shouldn't every home have a server?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I have my setup is because
I would say a NAS.
Class.
Maybe we go NAS these days.
I have a NAS.
Yeah.
But that's not got the most powerful processor.
That's true. That's true.
I have the nice Synology NAS, but I don't really, and I also don't want to expose it to the public, to the outside world either. So because I have a business class ISP, I have a static IP that can be kind of DMZ'd from the rest of it. And so I want to put a server on that.
Yeah.
So but then, Framework announced their little baby computer. And I thought, oh crap, did I buy the wrong one? Well, but
System 76 is like an Ubuntu guy, right? Like
they have their own.
I think that's interesting because they're going to make sure everything works properly with the OS.
It's core boot.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Is it Pop OS? No,
it is Pop OS. Yeah,
but that's based on what? Like
Ubuntu. It's an Ubuntu downstream.
But you can run.
I'm going to take it off and put Arch on it.
Yeah. You can run bare Ubuntu on it too, right? Like,
yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's if it supports Linux in any flavor,
it supports all the Linux.
It supports Linux, right? So, and I there's nothing wrong with Pop! OS. I just don't need a GUI.
Yeah.
And I want a rolling distro because, God, it's a nightmare.
I love that we're back to the no adult needs a mouse conversations of the early 1980s.
Not only do I not need a mouse, it doesn't have a keyboard, mouse, or monitor. It's going to be headless.
It's going to be headless.
But I just feel like I don't know. Maybe that's old fashioned. I feel like everybody should have a server in their house.
No,
and I want to publicly expose it so I can put, I don't know what, something on it.
You want to send it from your devices when you're out in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's
is that crazy?
Yeah. The cloud does that.
But it's
very old fashioned.
Well, I'm not even sure that's the right term. It's very technical.
Well, yeah. I mean, not a normal person wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm supposedly technical.
But I'm with you, Leo. Like, I'm not going to expose my Synology, even though it's got lots of room to run more Docker instances and stuff. Yeah. So,
and I don't really control its updates.
If I'm going to put a machine into DMZ, it's going to be doing only DMZ things.
Yeah, and it's going to be running a hardened Arch, and I'm going to. That's why I want a rolling distro.
And not so important, and not important enough to you that you couldn't just turn it off because because of any concern.
It's been a while, but let me see what Windows Home Server is doing these days.
Yeah. Oh, well, you loved that, Paul. Yeah.
It was great.
That was a great product
back in the day.
That was a great product.
I mean, this thing could be a Plex server. I mean, if need be, and.
Yeah.
I was thinking putting audiobooks. We were talking before the show because today's the last day that Amazon lets you download your Kindle books, so you can. I
love all these how-to articles about how easy it is.
It isn't.
It is not easy. And let me tell you something.
If you need an article, it's not easy.
I'm trying to understand the cross-section. Like you make a Venn diagram. You're like, here are the people who buy books on Kindle. Here are the people that want to strip DRM from any content. And, so they can put it in a different service. And here's the little, those two circles are way over here. Then there's nothing.
There's so many articles for those, that intersection point on the Venn diagram.
Maybe it's people like us who really want Amazon to pay for making this impossible. Like, look at what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there are examples of content changing. For example, one of the big ones for me was the James Bond books, which if you go back and reread, they
took stuff
in the past 10 years. Well, the originals are kind of offensive in many ways, right?
They made them woke.
But I think as the owner of the book or whatever,
I don't want to. If Ian Fleming was a racist, that's Ian Fleming. We got to.
I remember. I literally at the time.
Next, you're going to tell me that Hand shot first.
Same thing, right? So actually, that's a good example. That's a more modern example. It's the same thing. Yeah. And so the content maker, I guess, it has just, this is what we're doing. And you have this thing on a device, and if you put it online, you're going to get the update. I'm sorry, you're getting the woke version of James Bond, which I think we can all agree is fantastic.
The good news is we're rolling all that stuff back.
I know, yeah.
It's back just wait. To the 50s, baby.
Exactly. So, the other thing, but I mean, not to rip on this topic, but I mean, this feature comes out of a time when the Kindle first came out, which was the case with the iPhone as well at that time, where it couldn't do all the stuff itself. You had the computer was at the center, so you would download things to the computer and sync it to the device. So now we use it for piracy, and now we're outraged that Amazon is getting rid of this.
How dare you?
It's crazy. So
but that's the kind of thing I want to I want to have a server that's going to have my Kindle books on it, and I can. That's going to have my music on it. It's going to have my audiobooks. It's going to have all that stuff. And and it could all be in Plex, but not if it's DRM'd and et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like that all goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, this is what I'm talking about with that. I mean, I'm doing the NAS thing this year again, and I'm working around all the stuff you're talking about. It's the same thing.
I'm not the guy who's saying, I'll never use the cloud. You can't trust the cloud. The cloud's not
No, not at all.
No, I'm a heavy.
No, my deal is I'm going to keep using that stuff, but I want that to be secondary. I want my primary, I don't recall, source of truth. What's the right term? We can't use master or anything anymore, but whatever that word is.
My main.
Yeah. Or a main bathroom. Kind of just think of it as my
Lisa
bathroom.
and I had that conversation the other day. She says, you can't call it the master bedroom anymore.
No. Right.
I said, but where am I supposed to sleep if it's not the master bedroom?
You're like, but I am wearing robes. I don't understand. Where will they lower me into the honey bath? Right?
So then after I did it, I thought, oh, crap. And Anthony's telling me this too. I should have bought an AI NUC, like
AI
something with more AI capability, because then I could have my home AI server. And actually, that's why this Ryzen framework.
Or you could use a external GPU, by the way, which would probably work okay, right?
Yeah, this is an Intel Core Ultra 5 on this thing.
Yeah. So
I
that's
got a lot of RAM, but in hindsight, maybe I should have bought something like
I think
the
you're early
Nvidia.
on. Yeah. We're a little early on the curve for that stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, it's too early.
Yeah.
In a couple of years, I feel like I know Richard will have a home AI server.
Right.
Yeah.
You probably already do, Richard.
Well, I mean, if I can get around to actually bothering to configure it, but that's what that Snapdragon was going to end up being, right?
Yeah.
I know.
I think that
it's
would
funny.
serve well for that.
My there is a program called Full Moon you can put on your iPad. I put it on my M4 iPad Pro that is runs Llama locally, and it runs it quite credibly.
That's great. That's funny.
So with increasing
I went
number
with
of
the
open
64
source
gig
AIs,
iPad, so I can't really use anything.
but with an increasing number of open source AIs and an increasing hardware, better and better hardware.
Do
Do you think you have to have an Nvidia GPU to do this?
I think that's the streamlined way to do it because it just works with everything, right? I mean, if you want to run Llama, whatever it is, and you want it to run effectively and everything you want to work, I mean, I think the Nvidia is the best choice. But
it's sad because this new Mac Mini that I got has a lot of RAM directly accessible to an AI model, has the AI stuff, but it doesn't do CUDA cores, and all this AI stuff needs CUDA.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, a lot of those open source AIs, local AIs, do work on Macs because those guys are all using Macs, right? So that's another probably reasonable choice. I mean, it might not have the performance.
Well, that one could be the inside server.
Yeah.
Make that the inside AI.
I like to have multiple servers.
Richard, let me know when you set up.
You have a server farm. Your next statement will be every home needs a server farm, and every server has to have a very specific use case.
I've got a cluster in the basement.
So you have a DMZ, and that has maybe 3 servers.
And Richard's going, I just shut down my Exchange server. What are you doing to me?
I de-racked my life, and I'm happier for it.
Is he being funny? Because I actually have that in my house.
Maybe we're crazy. Richard, you can talk me off the ledge anytime.
No, I'm with you. Every home does need a server, right? At least for home automation.
I have the HA Green you told me to get, the Home Assistant. I love it.
And then the file store, which is your Synology. Like those are the fundamentals. And just because the LLM workload is so heavy right now, you need a dedicated machine for that that's got the GPU in it. That's 3.
And a public-facing computer.
I know, if you're going to play the DMZ game, and I waffle on that one just because
I'm going in a slightly different direction, but I mean that's one strategy. So in the PC space,
I just want to say, if all of a sudden the lip sync on these shows goes to hell, it's because I got that server.
Oh, there you go.
I'm eating up all.
Well, then we'll just do fake lips anyway, and it'll just be like an AI talking.
Clutch cargo.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. We didn't talk about the framework.
No. So one of the big things that happened this past year was right around the fall timeframe at IFA, Intel and to a greater degree AMD released new chips for PCs that have incredible integrated graphics and GPUs that merit, the Copilot plus PC spec. So good. The AMD ones are incredible. And then Christmas came, or the holidays came, and CES came around, and then they were like, "Hey, we're not done. We have even better ones." It was like, guys, what are you doing? Like they're on a tear. So Framework, I think most people know, hopefully, is they're really driving the right to. It's not even right to repair. It's like right to upgrade. Like completely componentized PCs. The big one is a laptop 13, which is a 13.5 inch screen, but everything's a module, so you can pop out the processor, the RAM, the whatever, USB or whatever ports you might want to have, screen, the keyboard, whatever, right? So colors, the panels, everything, it's everything can be replaced. Neat. So they've been slowly expanding. And then yesterday they went on a tear. They announced 3 new products. So for their classic laptop 13, they have the Ryzen AI-based module now, and build your own systems and complete systems, right? And this is the latest gen Ryzen stuff, which is awesome. So if you bought an Intel, whatever, 13th gen or newer, whatever module in a Framework laptop, you could pop it out and spend whatever that amount of money is, $400 or $500, I would imagine, and have a completely new experience, which might be worth doing, by the way. So that's cool.
Although this new framework, here is a rack mount of 4 of them, has soldered in RAM and soldered in CPU and GPU.
Yeah, so
it's not upgradable, which is interesting.
It's soldered into that module, though, right? So
it's soldered onto the motherboard, so you can replace the motherboard.
You can replace So that's how that's
an ITX motherboard. You could always replace that.
Yep, they explain this. It has to do with the design of those Ryzen chips, and that's we've seen this in the Copilot Plus PC.
They say they really tried to make the RAM upgradable, but
of course,
you don't get the bandwidth unless you solder it in. That's what Apple's done too. It's
that's Apple's started it. I would say, right? Yep. I mean, phones started it, but as far as making it mainstream in the PC space, Apple absolutely was the inspiration for that. So yeah, you see laptops that used to have 2 RAM slots, maybe done. It's all soldered on.
Well, and it used to be saving costs, but then when you actually got performance benefits from it as well, it's like, okay, because odds are you're not
thinner, lighter, less heat. It's
there's a bunch of good things about that, and the heat sink solution is a big part of that.
I have 128 gigabyte. SKU.
Yeah, you can, but you have to know what you want. You buy it at purchase time, right? So, yeah, there's that thing. They also introduced and this won't be shipping, I don't think, until mid-year, their first 12-inch laptop. This is Intel based, so you're going to get the Core Ultra 2, I would imagine, on that one, and then their first desktop computer. So it's and their description of this is really interesting to me because they say it's a mini ITX, so it's fairly small for a desktop, but has expansion cards and all the modular stuff. And, their thing there was, people, some people are going to ask, desktop PCs are inherently modular in a way, maybe not like a NUC or NUCs are fairly modular, but maybe not like a Mac Mini or something like that. But, this is kind of the next, it's not really small form factor. It's, mini ITX, but
mini ITX is like 8x8. It's pretty small.
Yeah, it's pretty small, but it's fully modular. Sorry. So I think this is going to do pretty good. And I think it's going to do good with people who want to play games, especially.
Yeah.
And I would even work like as a AI workstation kind of a thing because of the almost infinite upgradability of it, right? I think it's kind of interesting. So they're expanding pretty well.
Here's the question. When you go to upgrade this mini ITX machine, so you're really just going to get a new mini ITX board. They're going to make a new generation. You're going to want it.
Yeah.
What do you do with the old one?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm knowing this company, I would imagine they allow you to sell it back to them to recycle.
Yeah, a core swap would be awesome.
Yeah, like where you get some kind of a credit.
It's a practice of mine to find a kid who needs a computer and have them build a computer with my spares.
But that's tough with a module because not everyone.
You'd have to be all in on the module, right?
Right. I don't know. That's a I don't know if Leo knows how they handle that, but
no.
I mean,
I used to have the Framework 13. I loved it.
Right.
Loved it, and did do the upgrades, and you could upgrade the RAM and upgrade the CPU.
Yeah. The other thing this betrays, by the way, is one of my big complaints. I have several, I guess, with modern computers, laptops that I review is you'll have a situation where you don't have at least one USB-C port on each side. That's starting to shift finally, but years into this, whatever. But the bigger problem is you could have as many as 3 or 4 different types of USB ports. So you have like a USB-C that's Thunderbolt 4. You get one that's only USB-C 3.2, blah, 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 whatever, that has less bandwidth. You might have USB-A that's literally a 2.0, like what is that, 480,
the old school.
The old, just slow, but designed to charge a phone or something. And, my argument has always been like, guys, just use the best one all the time, everywhere. I don't understand why you would have different types of ports. So the difference is that for a PC maker, they save 13 cents or something, right?
Yeah.
And if you buy these USB modules from Framework for your Framework laptop or the desktop, I would imagine, they're all the same price. Yeah. So they're not making money on that. Like and in fact, I think they mostly just sell the best one there is. So or it's some combination of that, but you won't pay more for Thunderbolt 4 than you would for
and you'll pay less for one of those modules than a bloody dongle too. So you might as well get the ones you want, even the spares, because you can change them.
So in other words, like I would want at least one on each side, and I'd probably want 2 on each side, honestly, for whatever. But being able to configure it the way you want it, I'm surprised this isn't more of a thing. I've said this to, it's to Lenovo and HP. You've got these big laptops. You almost always put a numeric keyboard. I don't want that. Make that modular.
Mm-hmm.
Let the person buying it choose if they want that or not. And if they don't, maybe they get better speakers. Maybe they just get a flat plane, whatever it is, and the keyboard's in the middle. But you're one of the biggest PC makers or the biggest on earth. Like, why can't you do this?
Yeah.
But they're always, I think it's a margin thing for them. And, they're always kind of, I don't know. It's kind of a tough business, I guess, but. Anyway,
it's an interesting idea, and their site just about tipped over yesterday. They clearly won the news cycle.
It did tip over. I didn't get in yesterday, so I was put in a waiting line. I tried a couple of times. It's like you're on the you're on the list. I'm on the list
to the website
to get to the website. Like what? What?
Yeah, I remember when they did that for like buying World Series tickets, but now they're doing this for
I haven't seen something like that, and interesting.
That's
good
impressive.
for them. I think it's great.
For them.
I love what they're doing.
At least they're doing something different in this space.
Yeah, and hopefully having an impact. Like the big PC makers are good about recycling and using recycled materials. But I'd like to modular.
Yeah, if they start core swapping boards out and kicking out inexpensives as a byproduct, then more power to them. I'd buy them in a second for that.
Yeah, compared to what I would call a mainstream Ultrabook style laptop, the framework doesn't weigh a lot more. I mean, it's like, I think it's about 3.1 pounds if I remember for like a laptop 13. So you could get a ThinkPad X1 Carbon, which is using alien technology, and somehow is only 2.4 pounds now, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. But that thing costs like $2,000 to $3,000. Like you're paying for that. These guys line up really well with what I would call mainstream, business class, whatever, Ultrabooks. It's good. Okay, so that's the hardware bit, and then just on apps, I mentioned this when it was in preview, but now in stable on Opera One, you can get those sidebar apps. I think they call them add-ins for Blue Sky, Discord, and Slack, and this allows you to have kind of a push model for notifications without having to leave a tab open, right?
Right. So
it's probably for now, it's a little weird because some things you'll have in a tab and some might be in the sidebar. But as someone who uses a lot of browser tabs and keeps several pinned all the time, I actually really like this model, and it's an interesting idea. So,
anyway, which
Opera trying to be distinct
now?
Yeah. Well, you should. I don't know if you looked at the Opera. What's the light version of Opera called?
The Opera Calm edition.
Yeah, it's actually really pretty. Like, I really like it.
Actually, that's one of the things I like about Arc is that it is kind of
so clean.
Yeah, it's nice. Okay, a bit of confusion yesterday, or the day before. I guess maybe the day before. There was a website had an article about.
Yeah, I saw this.
Yeah, so
an ad-supported free version of Office.
Yeah, so I'm like, I have to try this, right? I have to see this. I've never used this myself, but this is an interesting kind of a thing. And it happening on the back end of Microsoft switching to this AI credit mode where you as a subscriber to Microsoft 365 can use a lot of these Copilot features, for the month. I was like, oh, maybe this is, tied together somehow, whatever it was. So I tried this on 2 different computers. I never got it to come up like this. When I wrote about it, I was like, well, I'm sure it's coming or whatever. These guys write about it. They have pictures, but it didn't work on the systems that I tried. And then Microsoft got back to me and said, yeah, we're not actually doing this.
Oh.
We're testing it, which I think means they are going to do it. But if you think about the mainstream versions of Office today for like desktop, obviously you have the desktop apps that you download from Microsoft as part of your Microsoft 365 subscription. And that's the full, suite. And then you have the web apps, right? And it's mostly core apps. So it's like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and actually I think OneNote, right? Still has a web client, I think. But okay, fine. So this was sort of in the middle, right? You're not paying for Microsoft 365. You download the suite from them. You only get those 3 core apps. They have a persistent advertisement pane over the side. According to that site, it throws up a video sometimes, like an ad video, whatever. But it's free, and it's not the full 100% set of functionality. Some of the more advanced features for each of those apps is not available in the free version.
Yeah, I can see like Excel pivot tables and things like that.
That's
like
exactly that. That is one of them. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And, varies by app, obviously. And then probably more features than are in the web app, which everyone's wondered why they don't make these into fully installable apps that people can use. Nobody knows. Not as full featured, but also not as expensive, obviously, as the full suite. So,
isn't the main ad they're going to run? You should buy Office.
Yeah, it's a house ad.
Exactly. This is a lost leader for getting you into an M365 subscription.
They're trying it. I get it. I'm
trying to find a vehicle, right?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, they're doing it with Outlook. Everyone loves that app, so why not? Why not screw with the other ones? So anyway, that kind of we'll see. Amazon had a set of services that were meant to compete with Microsoft 365. I think one of them, it wasn't called Workspace, but it was something like Workspace. Yeah, they killed that last year. Workday, maybe? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Nobody used it. Who cares? And then they had this communication service called Chime, which is basically their version of Zoom. So if you were to take all of the people who worked at Amazon that used this product away, you had a negative number of users. So they got rid of it. Amazon had quietly also contracted with Microsoft for Microsoft 365. So they've been moving to that. They paused it, remember, at the end of last year. Internally. Concerns about security and whatever. So they've figured that out. Microsoft obviously jumped all over that. Whatever their concerns were have been met. So that rollout is continuing. It's weird to me because they're paying for Microsoft 365 and get Teams, but they're going to use Zoom internally.
Yeah.
They will use Teams for their customers that do use Teams. So when employees want to communicate externally, they'll be using Teams, which I would say, well, just use one of them. I mean, but then again, if you think about it, and Richard knows this better than anybody, I bet, you have every one of these things installed because you talk to different people from different places and they use different things. And so in my case, like in any given week, I use Zoom, I use Teams, I use Slack, it depends, right?
Yeah, so it's usually Zoom or Teams. I mean, the point being, if you're in the Teams ecosystem, then you want to use Teams. And if you're not, you are not installing Teams. So you'll use Zoom.
They're going through this complexity because I think they're going to install both. I don't know if that's the way I took it. It's kind of a little strange. But Amazon, whatever. They made something called Chime. I mean, come on. What are they doing?
Everybody's trying to make their own. Work Docs was the Amazon.
Work Docs. There you go. Yeah, I knew it was Work something. Okay.
Obviously.
Yep. Yeah, I'm surprised I don't remember it. It was such a huge hit.
Such a hit. Listen, both guys who used it really liked it, and they're upset.
And then they switched from that to the thing Meta was doing. Surprise. So same problem, right? This reminds me of the early '90s or whatever, when everyone was trying to compete with Office, right? At the time, like
everybody needed their own.
Ray Norda, whatever his name was, at Novell. Partnered with or bought, I don't know, Novell, so they could have a suite that would compete with Office. And I think that killed them, actually. I think that might have put them in the grave, but didn't work out great. So everyone tried this for a little while. I think we kind of accepted the old world order, I guess we'll call it. This is related to nothing other than Amazon, but Amazon also this past week killed the App Store for Android, which raises some interesting questions. To be clear, not on Kindle devices, right? So if you have a Kindle, a Fire tablet, or a Kindle or a Fire TV device, they're still using their own stupid app store for that. The one no one wants, but that's what they use.
Notably used the Kindle App Store was Microsoft for its long departed Android subsystem for Windows.
And nobody wanted it there either, right? So this is what's weird. I don't think many people
it's part of the whole Kindle realignment across the board.
Yeah. So I wonder, right. So I'm kind of wondering chicken and egg on this. Like, did Microsoft get some kind of advanced view that maybe we're walking away from this outside of our own little ecosystem? Or was Microsoft maybe one of the nails in that coffin and whatever it happened? You have to think that people out in the world with like a Samsung phone or whatever normal Android phone were not installing this app. So they had yet another way to install apps. Like those guys already have two ways to install apps. So it's not surprising that it didn't do well. I think if I remember correctly, when I first launched, you would get like a free app every day or something that was, like you could build up an app collection pretty easily. But I don't think this thing had any support at all.
And I'm betting they got the heads up and that's why they killed it. in advance.
That's my guess too.
The heads up from
Amazon. And then Amazon has made a plan here to realign this.
Oh, but that was like a year ago, wasn't it?
I know, but Amazon moves pretty slow sometimes. I mean,
so Amazon said, guys, maybe you don't want to use the App Store,
or maybe literally we're getting rid of it, so you can do whatever you want. I'm sure Microsoft had hoped to get Google involved in this, right?
Yeah, we never really understood why they killed this.
Oh, I can tell you why. It's because they hate each other. You mean Google and Apple, Google and Microsoft hate each other, but they killed it because
subsystem was really a good thing, wasn't it? Or no?
Yeah, but you need the point of it is to fill in the app gap, right? So the Amazon App Store was never going to do that, unless you wanted to run a slightly better Kindle app, I guess. Right. But but people wanted Google Play, right? And obviously there were hacks to kind of make that work, just like there were hacks to make it work.
These are all this USB way to load, side load stuff like that was about. And Microsoft announced killing it a year ago, but they only actually are killing it like next week.
Yeah.
Oh, they still have it.
Yeah, it's been
technically because it's part of Windows, right?
So they gave the long lead time.
Yeah.
So interestingly, the time of death, if you will, is closer to this announcement, right?
And now it all sort of lines up.
Yeah, that's
really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now this is an FTC fodder here, man. You could talk about the collusion if you want.
I've never,
except nobody made any money
colluding on
it. Nobody cares.
Let's all make no money on this thing. Yeah, exactly. Yep. It was just always second rate. It's too bad. This is not official from Google, but I think it was maybe Business Insider or Forbes or someone reported that Google is going to drop text messaging as an option for 2FA authentication.
Good.
They're going to move to QR codes. This caused a bit of confusion with my readers who seemed to think they would have to point their phone at a phone to take a photo of a QR code. They were curious how that was going to work. I explained that you use a mirror for that. I'd be some kind of an idiot. No. But you.
No, you don't.
Yeah. No, you don't. No, I'm kidding. But
that's a good answer.
Yeah. I'm like, this is not obvious.
Just have your friend look over your shoulder.
That's right.
And read the QR code.
What you do is you draw a picture of the code, and then you take a picture of that. Come on, think.
I'm going to confess, I didn't understand how this works either. So explain to me.
No, it's so right now Google does a little bit what Microsoft does, where depending on the service, depending on the day, the phase of the moon, whatever it is, you have to authenticate for whatever reason, right? So if you
conditional access.
Sometimes, you just have to prove you again, right? I just did it.
For that, I use my two-factor authentication app, some call the Google Authenticator.
That's right. So that's one way, right? You could use a passkey. Well, I have to say that
I also use
one of the
passkeys
when they let you do it, and it's most of the time they do on desktop. I just did it on this exact computer before we started. The little pin tabs I have for Gmail and Google Calendar had a little white circle. I had to re-authenticate. I didn't have to do anything other than click yes, and then the little Proton passkey slid in. Yep, that's the one. And I was no problem, right? If you're on a Windows computer, you can use Windows Hello to authenticate against Google. If it's Google, we are talking about Google. There's different ways. So I think the most common, sadly, the most common mainstream way probably is a text message, right? But what it should be is a 2FA, an authenticator app. Ideally, it would be a passkey, but there's all different ways. And so most people will have, I don't know what the number is, 2 to 5 different methods, right? So if you were to go into your Google account, you could probably authenticate by sending an email to a secondary email address where you get a code.
If you have Google running on your phone, you can have it pop up a single sign-on message.
That's right, because the Google app, the Gmail app, the Android operating system.
But how does the QR code work?
The QR code is for when it's on your computer.
Okay, so it's only on desktop.
So the idea is you have your phone, you take it, you don't take a picture, but you use the phone app, you click the link, and then that passes through. And ideally on your phone,
you've already
not really sure how it works. It's probably by the way, here's another picture. I have no idea what this is. It's probably New York City.
Pittsburgh or Paris? Show it. Let's see.
No, this one's definitely, it's a big city looking down. It's got to be New York City.
Yeah, that's New York City for sure. That's New York City.
It's got to be New York City.
Yeah.
I don't recognize that. I think they show me other people's pictures. Anyway, it's a pretty good picture, right?
But this is still using your phone to authenticate, arguably a lower friction way than pulling up the Authenticator app and typing in a number.
Yes, and I would say Well, yes, and definitely more secure than SMS, right? So the next thing I'm going to talk about very briefly, because I don't want to get into this too far, is that in going through my single sign-on accounts that I use through my Google account and trying to sign into each of those online services that I've been using with Google, you have to confront something, which is what's worse, right? You're funneling everything through an account that could be taken away from you, but it's super seamless and convenient. It works great, the signing with Google. Or you take that away and now you have multiple passwords to manage, which you're using a password manager for, right? And that's protected with 2FA and whatever, so good. But every one of those services supports some subset of these other forms of authentication. And it's different for everyone. Some of them only support text message based authentication. Still to this day, it's stupid. So there is no good answer here. This is kind of a weird problem. So I have to say, I think from Google's perspective as a primary online account, like but in the upper echelon of the most important online accounts, they're probably the number 1 or 2, right? Especially because of this sign in with Google thing, or maybe in addition to that or whatever. But good for them for taking this away. Google has long supported every single method, including the hardware security keys, like I think Richard still uses, and I know Leo has used. It's not something I would like. My wife's never going to use that. It would
and I'm not recommending it anymore anyway. Like we're inches away from passkeys being really quite good.
That's right.
So the day of the FIDO key, I think, is done.
The problem with passkeys right now is just the inconsistency of implementation. And even Google, which I would hold up as the best, will do this weird thing where most of the time, what I described earlier, where I get it through my password manager, no problem, works fine. But I would say 5 to 10% of the time, the option I have is it actually puts up a QR code. I have to use a phone. I do have the passkey on my phone too. It's fine, but I signed in with Windows Hello. I have it right on this computer. Like I don't. Why? And I think part of it is just keep me on my toes. No, I think they're trying to. I think they want to vary it a little bit. Like when you get a code, sometimes you have to type in something, but sometimes they give you the thing, and they try to make it a little different, make it a little less easy to spoof. Maybe, I don't know. Anywho, I think what they're doing is good. I will say I can't say this definitively, but having now removed some hundreds of single sign-on connections, I'll call them, with my Google account, I've never run into an online account where I couldn't get into it otherwise.
Right.
Even though I think some of them I have never signed in otherwise, right?
Well, and there's often some pretty deceptive like phishing methods to get you to give them your Google SSO, right?
I know, it's not great.
They get additional data from that.
The problem for me is if I was positive, well, two things. So I can't be positive that there isn't an account out there where I won't be able to get into it yet because I haven't done them all. But I've done enough of them now. I'm thinking this is how the system works. Like I can't say it definitively, but I don't think there is going to be an example where I couldn't get into it. So, okay, good. Most of the time it's going to involve them emailing me a code, right? And then I can, maybe set up a password at that point, whatever it is, depending on the account. So there's that. But the truth is, if I thought I was going to get rid of that 100%, I would probably install a browser plugin that hid single sign-on opportunities from me, so I never was tempted to do it. But I also think I'm not going to get rid of all of them, right? I think there's going to be some handful of accounts, for me anyway, where I'm like, you know what? I'm actually going to keep using that Google SSO thing. So I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, basically. I've got to going down some path. I'm doing the work, and I'm not even sure what the point of it is. So I don't know. There's no good answer with this stuff, I guess. Maybe that's the point.
It's a battle. Yeah. And I'm even maybe I'm over optimistic on passkeys. There's plenty of opportunities for them to screw that up too. So
yeah, no, you don't have to look too far to find a service that screws up passkeys for sure.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, even Google is not 100% consistent. They're one of the better ones, but yeah, it's not. It bugs me. It bugs me when I can't. I know it's there. I can see it. I literally can see it. I mean. It's there twice, actually. It's in my computer. It's in Windows because Windows stores one as well. And it's in my password manager, which is always available. Why can't I use that?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
well,
why
at least
Steve
they're not
Gibson
using
exists.
SMS. And, this is a current issue because the government has now announced that they can't get the Chinese hackers out of our phone system.
Yeah.
Apple can't even stop a spam text that says, "Hi, who are you? You came up in my contacts." So what the fuck, guys? This is not social engineering.
There's three things that will survive a nuclear attack. One is the rats in the New York subway, the cockroaches in the New York housing, and the Chinese hackers in our nation's phone system.
Figure it out. This is the simplest thing in the world.
No, it's not.
Well, so a lot of it is. I mean,
one of the issues is in order to upgrade the equipment, they'd have to upgrade the equipment because the equipment they're using is bugged and they can't fix it.
Look,
software.
I'm just talking about something simple. If it says something like I just said, "Who are you? You're in my." Just don't show it to me.
Well, of course,
that's never going to be a human being.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean like. Yes, listen, we have AI now. You could sound like a human being. That person could talk to you. They would sound like the representative of a bank or whatever. Yes, people are going to fall for that. No doubt about it. But who's this? Who this?
Who this? New phone? Who this?
God, come on. Like even I could write something to block this. Jeez.
This is a bit of an
maybe
aside
you
before we
should.
go into the break, but we had an earthquake this past week here near Seashell. Yeah. And all of our phones went off after the earthquake.
Yeah. Right.
But also,
did you get the alert?
yes. But that alert's supposed to come out ahead. So it was a bit late. And we were really close to it too. I was in a pub at the time. It was lunchtime, and all of the sports screens flipped over to an emergency screen as well.
Yeah, that's what you want to see.
Yeah, it was just great.
After the quake.
They all arrived too late. Yeah, without a
And
doubt.
then it said, "Welcome to the United States of America."
Yeah,
51st state,
There you go.
thumbs up. No, I've had several experiences with this earthquake alert in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
One was right before an earthquake.
Yeah,
and everybody in the restaurant kind of went, "What's going on?" And then we had an earthquake.
Yeah.
The other one was everybody went, and the school, we're across the street from a school. They got all the kids out of the school and everything. And then there was a tsunami alert. And I told my son who lives in a houseboat, I said, go have lunch somewhere uphill
somewhere. Yeah, exactly.
And nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. You mean?
Well,
Nothing
tsunamis are
happened.
pretty rare, but
Not even an earthquake. I mean, they shut down the school. But I like the premise. And once it did work, it actually,
yeah.
the
just
theory
because you
being
didn't
that
feel the earthquake doesn't mean there wasn't one.
Yeah.
the speed of light is faster than the speed of quake. And so in theory, if they sense a quake, they can send out an alert.
I don't know United States, but here in Mexico, if you get an alarm, that means this is less than 3 minutes away. Like if it happens, it's happening.
Oh, it's going to happen
now.
quickly.
Yeah.
They only can outrace it by a few.
Well, the USGS has a technology called a P-wave detector.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and so that actually picks it up before the shaking starts.
Right.
But, the network is not straight line. It takes a while to get
cats for
through
this
all this
purpose.
stuff.
Cats,
the
kinda-
cats can pick
also
up
know
P-waves.
squirrely,
I'm waiting because we live on a hillside and the jury's still out about.
You're waiting for the neighbor up the hill to come colliding.
Will
through
we be
your door.
going for a ride or will they be going for a ride or?
Oh boy.
Yeah. Anyway,
scary.
it was a nice little 4.8 and on a fault
that's a
line
strong
nobody knew
one.
about. So the geology analysis of it's all very excited. But it woke everybody up.
So you felt it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, it was a good little shaker.
And then it said, hey, wake up.
Let's get ready for an earthquake. A little late, dude. That's fine.
The worst one I've been in is still the one that happened in New Jersey, New York last year. And I don't know how we've avoided that here, but I mean, by and large, but we're
Well, Richard and I are on the ring of fire. I mean, we are really on the fault lines.
Well, and the kicker is
I don't know if
the
you
day we
looked at
got to
what Mexico
PV,
City is, but it is.
Are you on a fault line there?
It is the entire country is a fault line. It is the worst possible. I think.
Well, also, you're built on a swamp, which is not the best.
We're a swamp that's been drained completely and it's just empty space. Yeah, it's perfect. It's what could go wrong here. God, it's like a sinkhole with buildings on top of it.
At least we're on bedrock, and that's good.
Yeah. This is the rock the ice couldn't crush. That's what you have to keep telling yourself. But no. And then, when we got to Puerto Vallarta in January, the first night, there was a 6.
Oh, that's why Paul was hanging on to you.
There you go. Well, that happens anyway, but it's separate issues.
You're watching Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott in Roma Norte, Richard Campbell in Madeira Park. More in a moment, but first a word from our sponsor, the folks who quite literally bring you this podcast. This episode of Windows Weekly brought to you by Cashfly, our content delivery network. For over 20 years, Cashfly has held a track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery, serving over 5,000 companies in over 80 countries. And we know this because almost since the beginning, we've been using Cashfly. Because when you use Cashfly, those podcasts, they must roll. They will roll. They will get to you. And have you noticed, Slack's been down all morning, but the podcasts keep on coming, right? We've been using Cashfly since the beginning. We love their lag-free video loading, their hyper-fast downloads, the friction-free site interactions. Cashfly is the only CDN literally built for throughput. Ultra-low latency video streaming, as an example, which can deliver video to over 1 million concurrent users with latency of less than 1 second. That's amazing. Lightning-fast gaming, which delivers downloads faster with zero lag, zero glitches, zero outages. If you have a site that has images, you'll love mobile content optimization because it's automatic. It's simple. It does image optimization so that your site loads faster on any size screen automatically. The thing that made a big difference for us, it was early days. We didn't know what the bandwidth would be like. So they were willing to give us flexible month-to-month billing as we figured it all out. And then as soon as we knew we got exactly what we were going to need, we got discounts for the longer fixed terms. The whole point really is you design your contract when you switch to Cashfly. It delivers rich media content up to 158% faster than other major CDNs. It allows you to shield your site content in their cloud and ensures a 100% cache hit ratio. We've actually been doing that. I think we must have been a beta because we've been doing that for years. When we upload our software, we don't put it on our site and then they cache it. It's stored on Cashfly, so there's never a cache miss. That's a great feature. And with Cashfly's elite managed packages, you get the VIP. Everybody gets the VIP treatment. Your dedicated account manager will be with you from day one, ensuring a smooth implementation, reliable 24/7 support when you need it. Good news is you probably won't need it. We rarely have to call them. I don't think I've ever called them for support, come to think of it. It just works. Learn how you can get your first month free at Cashfly. Cashfly.com/twit. How many times have you heard me say it? Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com/twit. Thank you so much, Cashfly. We are big fans. Back we go to Windows Weekly with Paul. And,
it's been a while.
Huh?
It's been a while.
It's been a long time. How have you been?
The Winders.
I got blinders on my winders. So It's been a long time since we talked about AI. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's been like 17 seconds. So
yeah, at least.
So I think it was last week. I'm trying to use AI, right? And by trying to use AI, that's like saying I'm not using AI, right? That's what that really means. So I'm trying to figure this out, right? And so I just wrote an article about some of the things I came across recently where, in one example, I was out half the day yesterday. So when I got back last night, I had, 100 and whatever items in my feed. There was the stuff to kind of sift through. I wrote a couple of things. And then there was this stuff I just kind of put off for the morning. And one of them was an Xbox announcement of some sort that was a video. There was no accompanying text, And I thought, what is that? How am I going to do this? I can't take time out of my day to watch a video. It was only 20 minutes long, but I'm like, back in yesterday, as long ago as yesterday, what I would have done is read the transcript, right? You go to YouTube, get the transcript, paste it into whatever. So I did that. And as I was doing it, I thought, wait a minute. I could use AI to summarize this, right? Why don't I do that? Yeah. And that worked great. And then I asked it this question. I'm not really sure what made me think of this, but I got the summary, which is good. Mm-hmm. And I said, this was in the form of an interview on like a video podcast, right? So it's a new guy in the Xbox executive suite, and then a person who works for Xbox but does these podcasts. And I said, do they discuss anything you would consider news? And they said, yeah, there's 4 topics we think might be newsworthy. And one of them was the thing that Laurent had written about yesterday, which is that the Fable
been delayed.
Reboot has been delayed, which we'll talk about a little bit later, although I guess now we don't have to. So So that was, that's useful. I mean, maybe I'll do more of that kind of stuff. I asked a few other questions. I wrote
my problem with summaries. How would you know if it was a bad one?
Yeah, I know. Right. So you gotta ask, you gotta keep probing, I guess. But, Leo, I think it was last week, mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, a 3-hour long video about LLMs.
3.5, my friend. 3.5. So worth watching. Yeah.
So coincidentally, I had watched a shorter video. It was probably like an hour, 20 minutes, but similar, kind of thing, explaining AI. Good. And of course, once you watch something on YouTube, then your thing has changed forever and you're just going to see those videos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tied to this, I also, you guys probably know who Dave Plummer is, the Dave Garage YouTube channel, former Microsoft engineer. Fantastic.
That's a great.
He did a 3.5 hour interview with Dave Cutler from NT, did it was a 2.5 hour interview with Raymond Chen, another, luminary, who's still working at Microsoft, by the way. Which I've watched actually both of those repeatedly. Fantastic. Recommend them. But he's been doing a lot of stuff around AI lately, also worth watching, right? And so I have all these AI videos now in my stream, and I came across one called Generative AI in a Nutshell, How to Survive and Thrive in the Age of AI, which is actually kind of an older guy who kind of latched onto ChatGPT earlier than most. And is one of those people kind of figured out, like, you have to use this thing differently. And I've not done this, but I think I know it's weird. I can tell this is getting mainstream because I know normal mainstream, like non-technical people who pay for ChatGPT and use it like all day long, every day. And so one of the stories this guy told in this video is that when he has something to figure out, in other words, you try whatever it is, like it could be anything, right? Because it's not always like math or science or engineering, whatever the thing is. He goes for a walk and he uses ChatGPT as a sounding board. So he starts by saying to ChatGPT, always respond with the word okay, unless I ask you for something. So it just listens and it doesn't interrupt him. And he kind of dumps his thoughts out. And when he gets back, he asks for a summary of that conversation that he just had with himself. And then they have a back and forth of some kind. And he gets recommendations for to-do items and things like that out of this. And I said this to some guys yesterday I was with, but we used to see people walking around in the streets talking to nothing, but they had a little headset on. We thought they were insane.
Yeah.
And now,
is it schizophrenia or is it Bluetooth? It's hard to know.
Yep. And now it's going to be as a schizophrenia as an AI, because they will literally be talking to nobody, but it will be their buddy ChatGPT.
Yeah, right. Can't wait. I'm dying.
Kind of interesting. Yeah. So the next thing though I want to do, and this is tied to, this is what I was saying up front, we're going to kind of hit on this briefly later, is when I think about my archives and how I want to be able to access them, I don't really think of that as like a public facing thing, although maybe someday it would be. But I do have like these smaller bodies of work that might be interesting for like custom GPTs, like the Windows 11 Field Guide, right? So let's say you bought the book, or maybe you're a Threat Premium subscriber. So you could go to a website, and instead of, you could read the book, you could look things up if you wanted. But if you had a specific question, how do I bypass the hardware restrictions in Windows 11? Ask the custom GPT that question, and then it will give you the answer based on the grounding it has in my book, right? So Leo knows exactly how to do what I just described.
I do that all the time.
Yep.
But
I want to do it.
You know what I found? These things now are such generalists that I don't need to do the RAG I used to do. Oh. So,
but this is,
remember I had a Lisp chat GPT. No, but I just the other day asked the new Claude coding assistant to write me some common Lisp code to solve one of the Advent of Code problems. Right. It did it very competently without any RAG.
No, I understand that. But what I'm saying is I want to create a service that people could hit on my site, maybe.
Literally I see.
Parses my
Query
book.
Paul. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you want virtual Paul.
Yeah. Well, virtual Windows 11 Field Guide to start. And then maybe
Are you listening to this? This is hysterical. What do you think of the idea of maybe having a virtual
I don't know who this Paul guy is, but he sounds like a freaking idiot.
I was just talking to my buddy. I
understand. So tomorrow there's going to be like a Windows 11 Field Guide.
A virtual
LLM.
assistant or a virtual presence can lead to many creative ideas and solutions. What specific idea are you thinking about regarding a virtual concept? I'd love to.
Well, my buddy Paul has a website, and he just wants to feed all his articles to you and then let people ask you questions about that they would ask Paul, but ask the AI instead. You think that's a good idea? She's a little slow, so sometimes
I can tell you my website search is terrible, so it's a fantastic idea.
it's going to be better than the website search,
That
right?
sounds like a fascinating idea. Having an AI like me answering questions based on Paul's articles could provide fast, informative responses to users, making the information more accessible. It could also free Paul from having to answer repetitive questions directly. How do you think Paul would feel about this setup?
I appreciate you considering my feelings.
By the way, it sounds a little like Helen Mirren, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I had it sound like Neil Gaiman for a while, but that creeped me out in the long run. So.
Right.
Yeah.
That didn't age well.
But this is that B computer I'm always talking about. But this is it's the very little seed of an idea, which I think is great. It's not just for your website. It's for you. It's like you can ask
No,
it.
that right. I'm kind of baby stepping into that. But yes, that's
Me
the point.
too.
You're getting close
in other words,
to her, right?
Yeah, let's
It's
ground
her.
it in something finite because you're going to get the best results, and we're going to limit it to this thing. And so
I
if
think
it's
you
in the
could do
book,
that now. I
think
really
so.
do.
Well, you can. The trick is publishing it. Like, you
and
have
would it
to,
be reliable? Yeah.
The testing I've done so far, where I just ask a question, so whatever the AI is, I've done a couple of different ones. It worked. Yeah, actually, it's good. Right.
That's the
it reads
benefit
like
of
the stuff I
RAG.
wrote
You can
too.
say
which
to
is,
it specifically, do not make anything up. Every answer must come from the
That's right.
source materials I
or
provide.
just if you paid for ChatGPT, you make your own GPT, right?
Right. Which
But
is what I did.
I don't I don't actually know.
How to do it
so-
on a website.
Well, there are services that will do this for you, but I have to find something that actually is legal, legal use of that LLM, whatever technology, and something that I don't get a bill for $6,000 after people start using it.
Right.
So I got to figure that out. But to me, this is an interesting idea, and it ties into that notion we talked about earlier of kind of grounding it in some collection of documents, whatever it might be, like my entire OneDrive. Maybe
that's what this is. It has a bunch of Lisp documents that I've uploaded to it.
Yeah, that's right.
And then furthermore, I've given it instructions about how to answer. And this prompting is everything, right?
Yep, that's right. So I used to,
and you can really tell these things how to be.
I bet if you were to query, the audience right now, 90-something% of them would cringe visibly when someone said the phrase "chat engineer" or or whatever, prompt engineer. But you know what? There might be something to it.
Oh, there definitely is.
It's creative. I mean, it's not really even engineering. It's almost I don't know what to call it, but there's a creativity to it.
We're going to have, we have, as you probably know, the show that follows this one is all about AI, intelligent machines.
Right.
In a few weeks, we're going to have a friend of mine, Harper Reed, who wrote an article about, with the prompts, how he pair codes with an AI.
Yes.
And it was a very thorough explanation of, what prompts to give it. And it was also a multi-layered thing. I mean, there's
there's something to it, and that the video that I referenced briefly is, the guy is whoever he is, but he is onto something. It's interesting. Like sometimes one of these will be good enough that I actually mentioned it to my wife. I'm like, you should probably actually watch this video. I know it looks a little geeky and technical, but you get these little tips. It's kind of interesting. We were out with these guys yesterday, and one of them, he talked to ChatGPT all day long, trying to find out things to do in a particular place, or if you had to choose between this and this, which is better.
Before you got here, I did I tell you this, that I was making breakfast for Lisa, and I wanted to make sure that I had the best possible hash browns.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I asked ChatGPT 01 deep research.
I love
it. Look at all the pages of research.
I do have any idea. You brought down the power grid in like Dubai so you could figure out hash browns.
I put a small village
into darkness.
Into darkness for this.
The
And it asked me some follow-ups, and it said, how are you going to make them? And look for this, 14 minutes it researched.
Jeez.
But it gave me basically a book.
There better be a duck fat thing in there somewhere.
Oh, but, I don't know. I couldn't read the whole thing. It was too long. So I said, just give me some bullet points. All right.
Right. He's like, just tell me which one to buy frozen.
But I want to point out that one of the things it did, you see, these are references.
Yes.
So that is a good thing, right? I mean, it's it's not just completely whole cloth.
Right.
It's always got some references in it, which I think is great. It also allows me to dig deeper.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the one I was thinking about for the book, it'd be kind of neat if you could link to where it was in the book. And then somebody who wanted that answer might want to read some of the other stuff around it or whatever.
This is the next version of the field guide. It should be that.
Yeah. It's just going to be me walking in a park, talking to my phone like a homeless person, But, $20.
By the way, the hash browns were excellent and would have been better had I followed the instructions to the letter. And I thought I was smarter than the AI, and I was not.
So anyway,
you should do this, Paul. This is a perfect example of RAG.
Trying.
Use the book, I think, not the website, the book.
Right. That's right. I'm trying. Yeah. I'm trying. Like I still, you mentioned the software development stuff. I have the stupid app thing I'm doing. This is a complete kind of side thing to the main point of it, but I'm trying, the text position in a text box is not a column row like you would expect or whatever. It uses this weird system, but you can kind of calculate column row, and I have to do it in reverse. And so finally this morning I was like, what did I use? I think I used ChatGPT. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But I'm like, could you just write me a freaking thing in C# that does this?
I need a pivot table, please.
Boop, 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 done. And I'm like,
it will.
Okay. Yeah. I spent 2 weeks on this like a jerk.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's mind-boggling. Now, Richard, one of the problems with AIs is they have a limited space for tokens.
Yep.
Right.
Paul's book is pretty long.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It might be too big to fit into.
No, that's been one of my issues. Yeah.
Yeah. The process of creating your RAG is vectorizing all of that into a form that can be fetched, right? Rather than trying to tokenize the whole thing.
Oh, they don't tokenize it. Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Well, they do, but they store it in a different way.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you're
worried about tokens because you're thinking in terms of his book as a part of a prompt. Given this gigantic prompt, what about this? Where in a RAG model, it's actually vectorized already. So
my God, that's crazy. But that is what you're doing. It's post-training, isn't it?
Yeah. So the free services will usually say something like, they're like, yeah, throw us all your documents. We're happy to steal all of it.
After 12.
And then they're like, it's a little big. Do you think you could split this up? Yeah. So I've run into that.
Anthony says RAG is different than putting it directly in the context window.
Which is what I basically just said.
Yes. Thanks, Anthony.
Anthony and I agree.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, so I'm just
because that's how Home Assistant works with the AI interface. Is that it's basically adding to the prompt the entire description of the house
in the context window instead of RAG.
That's right.
So, but RAG often maybe it's just a commercial limitation. I mean, like I can't put more than 12 documents. I think in ChatGPT.
Yeah, you can go. Yeah, it's what
if you're running at home, you could have an unlimited.
Yeah.
So is RAG tokenized and then
yes.
So the context window is vectorized. RAG is tokenized.
No, they're both tokenized, but but vector storage is how you store the tokens efficiently, so they can be fetched as part of the RAG, which is
that has to be in RAM.
Doesn't have to be, but it depends on size.
Yeah.
How big is your book, Paul?
Oh, it's big.
How many gigabytes?
Yeah. So right. You know what? I don't have this.
It's big. It's thousands.
It's big.
It's thousands pages.
I think one of the file limits was like 100 it was 50 megabytes. It's probably 173 or something. Yeah. So it's 1,100 and something pages, something like that.
It's doable though, right, Richard?
Yeah, it's totally.
Oh no, I've done it. I actually have done it. It's doable, but
good.
I'm trying to find one that makes sense.
Well, you also have to put it on the web, right?
That's right.
Well,
I did find a service called,
like every week you wait, it gets easier.
Right.
Yes. So something called pmfm.ai that allows you to pick the LLM you're going to use and do what I'm describing. And most of them you would have to pay, something. And I don't want to just throw this thing on my site and have people use it and be like, yikes. Right. I need to figure out what will this cost me? Ideally, it would cost me nothing.
Is LeanPub sophisticated enough to ask them? I mean, that seems like
LeanPub is not sophisticated enough to return an email, Leo. So no,
okay, never mind.
There is no.
I mean, that seems like a feature.
They're good people, but they're not yet.
Yeah. But you're not wrong. This should be what publishers get into to try and stay relevant.
I I bet you anything Tim O'Reilly is thinking about this, right?
Right. So,
Wouldn't
by
you-
the way, semi-related to this is a service. It's called 11 Publish, maybe, or something like that, where you have an ebook.
Oh, 11 AI, yeah.
11, and it will make
the
an
voices.
audio book.
They're really
You can
good.
choose
too.
yes. So I'm thinking about doing that for Windows Everywhere, for example. So we'll see. But first, I want to figure out this the Windows the field guide. No. Look, my goal is to not ever work again. So I'm thinking eventually,
how's that working out
AI,
for you?
AI is going to do it, good or bad. It's going to take my job away. So
It does a good job, but I don't know if you want to listen to the field guide for Windows.
No,
Is
not
that
the field
really-
guide. The Windows Everywhere book.
Oh, the
one
Windows
that's more-
Everywhere, because
the
it's
one that's more of a
pros. Yeah.
narrative.
Yeah.
See, Tim O'Reilly could take this, learning Python.
Oh yeah, but who would want to listen to that? Like,
You wouldn't want to listen to it, but you would want an AI that you could query.
right? That's right.
Because I don't want to read all this is thousands.
That's
of
right. No, you have a question. You're using Perl. You have a question. How do I do
You can
this
kill
thing?
small animals with that book. That's huge.
Yeah,
I know.
You could kill yourself if you're
The
sleeping on
funny
your.
thing is,
read on
I
your
learned
back and do
Python
that.
when this book was half as big. And then I said, oh, I got to learn Python 3. And I said, good Lord, I've missed a lot.
Yeah, they've been
The
up
first
to
edition. The first edition was this thick.
I'll just recommend again. Scott Hanselman and Mark Razinovich have a podcast, and one of the conversations they got into that I really thought was funny was Scott said something to the tune of, well, it's not like you're going to use this thing to create code in a language you don't understand. And Mark said, I do that every day. What do you mean?
Exactly what you can.
And he said, well, I think the example he used was Python. And he said, I don't know anything about Python because I can tell you what works. Make me a function that does whatever, because it's used a lot with AI stuff, I guess. And then he just tells it several times, make it better, and it does. And then
Yes, that's one of the tricks, isn't it? Is okay, that was a good start, but improve that.
Yeah. So he's like, no, I do this every day. He's like, I'm not learning Perl or Python. I'm just going to do it this way.
I mean,
And
as I said,
he's
I got
one of the
Claude.
smartest people we've ever met. So if he's doing this, I mean, I think it can.
I got
be done.
Claude to write a very good answer for my Common Lisp. This is day 7 for the advent of code, and it wrote it in Common Lisp, which I do know. That's the language I use. But it not only was it well written, but I ran it and it worked.
Yeah, it's nice when that happens.
I mean, I don't have to really do the advent of code anymore. I'll just have my friend.
I think you've misunderstood the point of the advent code. But,
Actually, this was great because I could learn from it.
Yeah.
Because I was I was a little struggling with this one because it's dual recursion. And I thought, I don't know. And now this helped me understand it considerably. And by the way, look, here's the explanation it did on it.
No, I know. That's the thing. It's really good at documenting it.
Yeah. Much better than I am.
You ask it a question, spits out the code, and it's like, this is what we're doing here. And it's like, nice.
It's amazing.
Yep.
This is why I wanted to do an AI show.
Right.
It's interesting
Because
times.
something's happening. By the way, Stephen Wolfram will be our guest in about an hour.
Oh, like anyone's heard of him. No.
Ray Kurzweil in 2 weeks.
Sure.
We're getting some good people, heavy hitters on. As I said, Harper will explain how he uses ChatGPT to code.
Cool.
But what's interesting to me, really kind of an overarching thing, is a lot of this behavior is kind of unexpected.
Yeah.
Like it's better than one would expect.
Right. That was I don't know why I keep referencing it, but that short video I mentioned at the end, he says something to that tune. It says, one of the things that's really interesting about it is the people that made this didn't expect it to do this stuff. Like in some ways,
there's some sort of emergent property
term.
here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's something going on here that's very interesting. And I welcome our AI overlords. It's fine. It's all good.
I think emergence is a perception thing.
Yeah.
On our part.
Yeah, of course.
We're just
we
thinking it's
anthropomorphize anything like pets, whatever. Of course.
Why
Of
would we
course
stop
we're doing
now, right?
this. Right. We're good at it. It might be one of the
Or
things.
I do it the opposite direction. We have a inflated opinion about what we do as human beings when we think.
Yeah.
And we think there's some magical thing going on, and actually, if you throw enough compute.
Oh no, it's you're like
AI,
the
it's gonna do
cuckoo
the same
thing that
thing.
hits the thing, like that's your brain in action. It's not right. Yeah. Well, it's certainly my brain in action, except I missed the thing.
So emergent is just saying, wow, it's it's almost as good as we are. Which
and then you fling the feces at your friend, and you're like, oh yeah, how did it raise to this level?
Honestly,
unbelievable. Okay, so
moving right along.
Yeah, we got to hit the top of the hour here. So let me. I'm gonna race through a little bit of this because most of it doesn't matter.
Tell me about Panos. Tell me you watched this thing.
Oh, did you? You can't watch it. You had to be there.
Nope. No, I did not. Well, I will say in the past, I've been invited to watch it remotely.
Mm-hmm.
Did not get an invite this year. I'm sure it's not related to me crapping.
Yeah, The Verge got all the invites. There were like 5 Verge people there. Live blogging it.
Amazon live blogged it. I mean, whatever. So Amazon Alexa Plus. The good news here is it's actually free if you have a Prime account. I was afraid it was going to be an additional thing.
I didn't. Yeah, but did they say when is the real?
Yeah, a couple of months. I think end of March or something, or something. It's coming. It's not here not today, but not 6 months from now. It's just a month or two. If you don't have an Amazon Prime account, then I have no idea why you would pay for this, but you could pay $20 a month, which I don't think anyone's ever going to do.
I don't know. It's what we do for ChatGPT and Claude.
Yeah, right. So why would you go to the Amazon playground? Yeah. I mean, whatever. I don't know.
It seems like you need an Echo with a screen and a camera and.
Yeah, no. It turns out Amazon sells you some things that will make this better. Yeah. So, yep. I'll look at it. I'm not super excited about that because Amazon hardware is crap. The problem here is. The good news is Amazon's pretty consistent. They're good. They put out, they do stuff. They're not like Google goes off like a kitten distracted by a laser light. Like Amazon, they do stuff. Mm-hmm. But also I've seen the stuff they're doing is crap. And I just don't, like these devices are terrible. So I don't.
They didn't announce new devices, did they? Just Alexa.
Believe so, but they don't have to, right? Because none of this is local, right? They don't
need to.
That stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
That may change over time. Like they'll have devices that maybe are better.
Here's the real question. How many times did Panos say he was pumped?
Yeah, I don't know because I refuse. So I don't know. I assume he did. How many embarrassing videos of his daughter did he show? How many weird pairs of sneakers was he wearing? I don't know.
Would it be worth spending $400 for the 21-inch Amazon Echo that hangs on your wall?
Not to me, but I don't know.
That's kind of pricey.
I do like the idea of a 15-inch smart display. Based on the fact
you can get the 15-inch, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not made by Amazon. I mean,
no, they have. They have one made by Amazon.
No, I know. $300. I mean, that's probably okay. Look, we'll see. They appear to be a little ahead of Apple, which, granted, low bar these days, but
poor Apple.
Poor Apple. They're missing the AI boat pretty good. Yeah.
They're doing okay financially, though, so don't feel
somehow they're getting by.
Yep. OpenAI said that they now have over 400 million weekly active users.
Wow.
Not bad. I think at least 4 or 5 million of those are paying, but whatever the figure is, I mean, it's a good user base. That's good. There was a heavily misunderstood story, mostly because there's no way to really know, but there was a report that Microsoft has canceled some of their AI data center leases for the coming year. I actually don't think this means anything, frankly. What it sounds like is, it's finally slowing down. The only thing Microsoft will say on the record is that, look, we already said we're going to spend $80 billion this fiscal year. We are spending at least that this fiscal year. So it's going to be more than that, but whatever. It's most likely that, to me anyway, my opinion is that they have let OpenAI go off and use other people's AI infrastructure. They get the right of first refusal, but it's going to ease up their needs. And I think some of these were things where they hadn't actually exchanged money. This was like a forward-leaning type of a thing. They were probably just making sure they could have capacity if they needed it, mostly for OpenAI, right? And so they're probably not going to need as much of it anymore. So I don't think it's anything. I don't think we're seeing. There's no indication at all that big tech is slowing down the spending on AI. So it will happen eventually, I would think, but I don't think today is that day. Anthropic, which is really kind of interesting in that they're super highly regarded among like technical people for their LLMs. came out with their first reasoning model. This is the type of model where you can kind of see it thinking, so to speak. It kind of shows you how it gets to its answer eventually, except that they're not doing it as a separate model. So they have a new version of their cloud Sonnet model, 3.7, I think. And it actually just has a switch. You can go back and forth between, faster and maybe less accurate, or slower, and you get to see the text, and more accurate, right? And it's your choice. And of course, if you're a developer, there are APIs that will do that for you and all that stuff. So good. These are just semi-related. Like I feel like this all happened kind of back to back, but things that were paid are suddenly becoming free, which is not what we would expect with AI, because we're always told how expensive everything is.
Yeah.
And then in one case, one thing that was super stupid expensive is now just normal expensive. So Gemini Code Assist, which is their version of GitHub Copilot, is now free for individuals. And it's pretty much wide open. I mean, they technically have limits. I don't think anyone could code this much and not sleep to use these limits, or hit these limits. So it is effectively free. Like GitHub Copilot has usage restrictions each month, then it resets. And I've never run into those limits on GitHub Copilot, but so, I mean, whatever, good for them. I mean, so Google Gemini, you can get that for free. That's cool. Think Deeper, which is the, Microsoft flavored version of the OpenAI ChatGPT reasoning model, no longer has usage restrictions. Before they had monthly usage restrictions, and also the voice capability, same thing. That is interesting. And then the deep research feature, which was previously only available to ChatGPT, I can't remember what it's called, but maybe Pro.
The $200 tier?
The $200, right, is now available to all of their paid customers. So no matter which plan you're on, like $20 a month for individuals, you get access to that. Now, there are restrictions, of course. I think it's, off the top of my head, maybe $15 a month or something, or whatever it is. But, you could do Leo's deep research into hash browns.
There you go.
Hash browns, yeah.
or some sciencey thing, whatever it might be.
Or some, there's a lot of science in hash brown making. I don't.
Yeah, but you don't need to do more than 15 researches into hash browns a month. So
I would think
it's pretty funny.
The free tier is probably good enough for that one.
Yeah. It's pretty funny that it took 14 minutes longer than it took me to make the hash.
To make it, yeah. I mean, it's funny. Apple has been going through a series of iOS and also iPadOS and macOS.
I would never ask Siri how to make hash browns. I could tell you that right now.
I'm sorry. I don't know what the temperature is right now. Why is it? What?
Get a rubber eraser.
It's like a person who has both like hearing loss and dementia. Like if you want that in a model, or, a chatbot or whatever this thing is called now, Siri is right there with you. So 18.1 was the first to add some features. I think 18.2 was the big one. 18.3 came out. So now they're testing 18.4. This was the one that was supposed to close the loop on the Siri functionality they talked about last year at WWDC. And it turns out that that's not going to be the case. So this is going to be a future release. It's very possible that we're going
for Apple, but they clearly said they were going to do something before they knew how they were going to do it. And now they're fighting to try and deliver.
Yeah, I mean, I look, if you're an Apple customer, use these products. And I guess the good news is they're going to get it right, and they're not going to ship it until it's kind of there, I guess, is the idea. But it's taking a long time. I mentioned that service 11, whatever it was, 11 public, whatever, blah, 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 that will take, if you're an author, will take a ebook, right? No. Yes, it will take an existing book and turn it into an AI narrated audio book. Spotify is also offering this service. Nvidia partnered with actually two other companies and did some work with the Rochester Institute of Technology, where my son went, to give away a service called Signs. And I think it's signs.ai. Let me just make sure. Yep. signs-ai.com. That will help you learn American Sign Language for free. Nice. Yeah.
Oh, I saw that. That looks so cool.
That's a neat thing. And
I was going to ask you what your son thought of that. I think.
Yeah. So really he was excited that RET was involved in this, and they're doing a thing where you can sign up if you know sign language. You can optionally go in and say, "I will help you train it," and you go through some exercises, you do various signs, and they try to find the ones that are most accurate and use that to train the model. The goal is to make this thing as accurate as possible, right? They're going to grounded on that data, right? And so it's, it's the American Society for Deaf Children. And then there's a company in the back end that has a strange, I'm sorry, I don't know the other company, but Nvidia, right? So Nvidia is obviously donating a lot of technology to make this happen, but cool. I mean, this is great. They also, my wife is more involved in actually everything than I am, but I threw this quote by her. It says the American Sign Language is the third most prevalent language in the United States. And she's like, no, it isn't.
It's not?
No, not even close.
Oh.
I don't know why they say that. So obviously English, Spanish, but after that, it's like Portuguese, Italian.
Oh.
It's a whole thing. Like it's some, I don't know what the numbers are. I shouldn't say numbers, but it's actually not even close. And she knew that right off the top of her head. She's like, yeah, that's not
Of course she did. Yeah.
The AI probably wrote the press release. It's fine. What else? And then because I asked about this last week, so Microsoft did belatedly ship, to me belatedly, .NET 10 Preview 1, right? So now I think every 6 weeks through November, we're going to get more previews and whatever. But this one was weird. I don't know if you must have looked at this, Richard. Like, this is the first time I think I've ever seen this where there was no announcement post describing things. They just had links to each of the whatever's in this milestone. And those links all went to GitHub, which is inscrutable. Yeah. And I went through the list and I was like, I don't think there's anything new here. I don't know what this is of note. Obviously, well, this will be a long-term servicing version of .NET, so that's cool, but that's not going to be in the preview. And then when I look for the things I care about, like things like WPF or, this some minor WinForms change or stuff they're doing in .NET MAUI, just language changes to C#, et cetera. There's not a lot of meat here. It's a lot of text, but I don't know. This one was a little strange for me. I don't know.
Well, you did complain last week that they hadn't posted anything, so I guess they felt they needed to post something.
It's not even in the top 10.
Yeah, right.
Well, I did say spoken. Maybe if I didn't say spoken.
There you go.
I feel like ASL.
I when she said this to me, I looked up languages and I found 5 immediately that had more users. In the United active users.
Yeah.
But there is a video coming of the what's in preview 1 that might be a little less inscrutable.
Yeah, I think my take from outside, like way outside, is that I think they might have finally, they're on a pretty tough cadence. I mean, it's possible that once a year for the entire stack is not necessary maybe anymore. Like they haven't just caught up. Like it's so much better than it's ever been. I mean, maybe it's time to start thinking about not having every year. I don't, just of the platform.
Well, I would also argue that preview 1 is usually all the stuff that didn't make it. There are epics, there are bigger features that are worked on across multiple versions, and you haven't heard from any of those yet because they're still gauging where they are on them to say, is this going to appear?
Clearly they wanted to get this up before the end of February, something,
this is the normal time for preview 1 to come out.
Yep. So maybe, preview 2, preview 3, whatever will be more meaningful. I know, just because I cared so much about it last year, they did, the WPF stuff in preview 4 or 5. I think I would remember that, one of the two.
But that was also in timing with the announcement of Build, right? The Build that kind of said, hey, we're going to make a big push on WPF.
But then there were no other updates. And then it shipped. And then it was like, oh, here's a couple of new features for WPF. It's like, guys, geez, you couldn't have thrown that in a month earlier. I
think there's a real struggle for what gets done in the time frame.
I think so too. That's what I mean. It might be a little too aggressive.
There's a sort of philosophical debate here of do you ship to a date or do you ship to a feature set?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And for a long time, dev lived on a ship to the feature set world, but it also meant that you didn't know when stuff was going to appear. Right?
Yeah. And right. So there's a reliability, obviously, to a yearly schedule. But look, maybe it's time for an 18-month schedule. I don't know.
And there's certainly an argument around that because it's not like they're trying to make annual revenue, milestones here either, right? There's no money here. There's no direct revenue associated with this stuff. It's also a part of this is also keeping people on the current version to decrease the amount of security patching they need to go back on and so forth.
That's right.
And CLTS and all of that, like getting this commitment to the 3-year cycle, like you're talking about a big thing to change. to be able to expand that out.
But we're on version 10, which I guess is technically whatever version, because this was .NET Core. Well, I guess it is. It's still 10, right? It's still been 10 since
more
.NET
or less.
Core?
I mean, they skipped over nominally 5, right?
Okay. I mean, look, okay, so we're about a decade into this. It's succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams, I think. It's incredible.
Since the rewrite,
Yeah, maybe now it's time to rethink. I don't know.
You know, if you have .NET questions, that guy on the right there, Mr. Richard Campbell's the king of .NET. His podcast, .NET Rocks at .Rex.
I am the court jester of .NET. Thank you for mentioning that.
If you have an Xbox question, the guy in the middle is the one to ask. You're watching Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell. We're glad you're here, you lovely winners and dozers. Let's do the Xbox segment, Paul. A chance for you to show your brilliance.
Well, that's not good.
And it's so much good news too.
Unfortunately, so we already mentioned that Microsoft delayed Fable, the reboot of Fable, as part of this bizarre video interview. Just a weird way to do it. It's hard to know where to land on this. Phil Spencer talks about this a lot. Like, we want to give these studios the time they need to make the game right, make it well. And the alternative, of course, is what we see across the industry, which is there are games that are 3 years in where they're like, yeah, we're not doing this. And they just give up on it. So that's obviously a fear as well. But okay, fine. And as part of it, and I only know this because I use ChatGPT, but they talked about the broader strategy at Xbox and bringing games to more platforms. And there's nothing new to say there, but I think it's one of those things Xbox as an organization feels like they have to keep repeating, because at some point you have to reach these people who are just like, no, I want console and I want it exclusive, and I don't know. I don't know how we bridge this gap, but
I don't know that anybody actually wants exclusive per se. That isn't a game producer, right? Like, regular people don't care where the games run; they just want to run on their device.
You would think that, but my readers are really negative about this. Like, they feel that they associate with Xbox as a brand. They see what Sony did and the successes they've had with these exclusives, and they want that for themselves. But
this is more about
games.
This is more about the conversations you'd have with your therapist than it is about software. Then
I am with you 100%. I agree. No, I am. I look at this logically and I say, look, yes, it would be wonderful if Xbox as a console was going gangbusters. It was great. It's not. So what can we do? And I think they have come on. We'll see what happens in the real world, but I think this strategy is correct. And that Xbox ultimately is really, they don't want to say it this way, but it's what Activision Blizzard was, right? With the nuance of our parent company is Microsoft. They have this cloud stuff and data center. And we're going to be doing, cloud streaming games. We'll talk about that in a second. We're going to be doing AI generated content. I didn't put this in the show notes, but one of the things Activision finally admitted to was that they put out all this in-game content for Call of Duty, and it comes out at such a clip that people are like, come on, you must be using AI for a lot of this. Like, how are you doing this? And they were like, yeah, some of this is made with AI. And the sum of this is stuff like little decals and hats and guns and things or whatever you can buy in the game that just, don't really impact anything. But people like to spend money
that
on
stuff. Yeah.
Stuff. I don't know. I don't spend money on anything like that. I get the game, but then I just kind of play the game. I don't know, whatever.
And you call yourself a gamer.
I know. Well, yeah, I usually try to do air quotes around it, small g, but yeah.
You're a gamer. I call you gamer, man. You're a gamer.
Thank you.
Game over, man.
Yeah, exactly. So Xbox Cloud Gaming, which is the former Project X Cloud. Yeah, I don't know why that sounds weird when I say it. Yes, xCloud is something you can only get as part of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, right? So if you pay for the most expensive tier, you get
which is expensive.
It is expensive. It's $20 a month now, right? It's expensive, but you get all the PC games, you get all the Xbox games, and you can stream a chunk of them through the service. But it's continually in beta. It's not really changed too much. And they just announced an update to it, which in the scheme of this thing is actually fairly major. So you can invite people from within these streamed games to come and stream with you and play games with you. So that should work anywhere you can access Xbox Cloud Gaming, so cross-platform, which is pretty cool. I love the network quality indicator, which will do what my iPhone does and tell you that you always have 5 bars, even though you can't connect anything.
Lies.
So if you've ever used like Xbox Cloud Gaming, unless you are the perfect storm of upstream and downstream and right place, right time, whatever phase of the moon, it's kind of a dicey endeavor. There's a lot of latency issues there. So whatever. And then they've made new titles available that you can stream if you own them, right? So one of the features they did add fairly recently was that thing they promised probably 2 years ago, which is that if you own games, digital games, you can stream them through the service as well. You don't have to have them on an Xbox somewhere and stream them from the console. And I'm looking at this list, and honestly, I don't recognize. Well, Tomb Raider 4 through 6 is remastered. That's cool. Kingdom Come, Deliverance 2, several others. Subnautica.
Deliverance, the game.
Deliverance, yeah, not the.
Did you get to squeal like a pig?
No, that was the first one. It's the sequel. No, it's Kingdom
I'm not sure
Come.
I want to play that game.
Nobody wants to play that game. Nobody. Kingdom Come : Deliverance 2 is the not Deliverance. It's a what do you call it? It's like a
you got a pretty mouth, like a woman,
right? The Tennessee Valley Project or whatever.
They were going to flood it, and
and then they would have flooded those guys. So they didn't.
Burt Reynolds decided this would be a good time to take a little kayak voyage down the mighty river. Yeah, that's a great movie.
It is a great movie. A little uncomfortable in places.
I don't know how well it ages. You ever watch old movies and you go, "Wow, we really
all the time," and you're like, "Oh my god, I love this when I was a kid." And what happened? We're
doing that right now because the Day of the Jackal is on, the TV show.
There are multiple versions, right? So the original.
I'm watching the new TV show with Eddie Redmayne, and I'm telling Lisa, that's not. This isn't. It didn't happen. What? Because I read
the original one is the French leader from World War II.
De Gaulle. They were going to assault. Right. So we're watching the original 1973 movie.
That's pretty good.
With Edward Fox.
I think it's Eddie Fox. Yeah, the other Fox, the one that's not in every movie you've ever seen in the 90s.
It's a wonderful movie, but it's a little. Lisa's going, what would make this really work? A drone shot. It's like, no.
So there was a fairly modern remake with, I think, was it Richard Gere?
Oh, there's a new version?
Modern era, not new now.
Is he still going after De Gaulle?
No, they changed up the plot. But actually, if you've seen the movie The American, right, with Clooney, right? Yeah. If you think about Clooney and his character in that movie and him assembling weapons and going around, it's actually very much like the original movie to me, Day of the Jackal.
There's some little in the TV show, which is a 10-hour extravaganza.
Is this on what, Netflix or?
It's it's Peacock, I think, or
that's right. Okay,
it's one of those Peacock. Oddball, but it's good. It's just it's not the original.
I found the ending disappointing and deeply unsatisfying.
It's not well written. There are. Like all of a sudden, he gets hit by a car, and then the next scene,
they cut away.
He's walking around.
I think they ran out of money.
He gets stabbed.
Couldn't shoot the
that
final
must be
episode.
what it is.
Yeah. So it's Bruce Willis, Willis, and Richard Gere. We're in 1997, so not modern, but more modern.
Watch the original Universal Pictures 1973, starring Edward Fox.
Yeah,
The Day of the Jackal. Classic movie.
I think Redmayne did a good job.
And Edward Fox is that guy. You'll be like, I've seen him
great.
But he is a brother who's an actor, and they look very similar. And I always forget.
Fox always plays royals now, like he's King Charles. Of course.
Now. I was going to say looks most like the Andrew, actually. But anyway, but yes. Okay.
Anyway, sorry.
And that's that's it. That's what I got.
Folks, before we go on to the back of the book, there's a fabulous brown liquor pick a coming. It's a coming around the mountain when look, they're tiny. Hello, guys.
We're just little.
It's little Richard. If you want these little guys to grow up big and strong, there's one thing you can do today to help them, and that's to join Club.
Tell them to stop smoking.
That's your growth.
The Club, by the way, $7 a month gets you ad-free versions of all the shows. You get additional content. Tomorrow, we're doing Stacy's Book Club. That'll be a lot of fun. I always like doing that. I have to read a 700-page book in the next 24 hours, but that's par for the course. We have the photo guy, Chris Marquardt, doing a wonderful photo segment every month. There's a lot of extra stuff for the Club. Plus, of course, access to the Club Twit Discord, which is the behind the velvet rope access to all of our hosts. But most importantly, that $7 a month makes up the difference between what it costs to do these programs and what we make on advertising. The advertising doesn't cover it all, but the Club makes up the difference. We thank the Club members, and we invite you to be part of the Club. It's really a great club. It's $7 a month, twit.tv/clubtwit, or scan the QR code in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. Now back to the little fellas. It's time for the back of the book, starting with Paul's tip of the week.
I just got an email, by the way, that's told me that AI is a better cook than I am. So
it might be.
You're onto something, Leo.
The AI made better hash browns than I did. That's for sure.
Yeah. This is kind of apropos of nothing. I just want people to know that this happened. So some years ago, some guy started a Unix preservation society, and Dennis Ritchie. I don't know why that's hilarious, but okay. Dennis Ritchie.
Think Unix is doing okay. I'm just saying. I don't know if it needs to.
Well, is it? I mean, Unix isn't really. I mean, the original Unix. I don't know. I mean,
Paul, next time you do your banking, you can thank.
Okay. Well,
Dennis Kernahan and
Dennis
Ritchie and
Ritchie and Kevin Thompson and
whatever Kernahan's name was.
Yeah. Yes.
Thompson.
So Dennis Ritchie in 1997 donated to this guy a set of old what he called deck tapes, which were backups he had made on a PDP-11 back in the 70s, which included a bunch of the original source code for Unix. So the first two versions of Unix were actually written in PDP, whatever assembling language. Yeah. And then, of course, they invented the C programming language, and subsequent versions were written in C. So this is not actually the oldest version of Unix. They found handwritten notes about the source code for the original, one of the 1.0 versions, scanned it, got it onto an emulator, and it works. Like they got it to work. But these tapes have been around for 40, 50 years, whatever.
A huge discovery.
But he started handing them off to a different guy who has specific skills around recovering data off of these tapes. He found on them, he collected not in one thing, but he collected what he needed to find the oldest machine readable version of Unix. Wow. It's a beta. They didn't call it beta at the time, but they didn't have version numbers at the time. But between V1 and V2, sometime in 1972. So it's, V2, I guess, had some fundamental changes to the operating system that hadn't occurred yet in this version. So it's really kind of a 1.0 something, like 1.5, whatever. And he got it running in an emulator, and it works. So you can go see the source code. You can download it. He has all the instructions.
I have a PDP-11 emulator right here. I should see if I can get it.
Wow.
It's really interesting. So to me, the story is what's most interesting.
Now this isn't the one from the napkins. This is from the tapes.
This is from tapes.
So
the point of this was this will almost certainly be, given the passage of time, the oldest version they've ever recovered from actual physical media.
Well, the Unix era begins in January 1st, 1970. Mm-hmm. But 72 has to be one of the early. For years, I have cherished this book. Mm-hmm. This is called the Lion book. It's Lion's commentary. It's the Unix 6 source code.
Okay.
And it's actually, you can see it's a dot matrix printout. But Lion wrote great commentary on this. So
there was a guy who still has a running PDP-11. I wonder if we could get that Unix loaded on that machine.
This is a PyDP. It's running a Raspberry Pi, but it's emulating. It's full.
So I could be getting this wrong, but I think V1 the first version actually ran on something called the PDP-7.
Yeah.
Which curiously is an 18-bit mini computer system from 1965. Right? I think it was programmed with Egyptian hieroglyphics or something. But yeah, DEC assembly language.
1170, so it's much later.
Yeah, so it's V2 and this, well, it was ported later to the PDP-11, which I guess was much more powerful.
The funny thing is, in 1984, when I started working for KNBR Radio in San Francisco, they were generating their music playlists on a PDP-8.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
And the software it ran on was on this giant 8-inch floppy. So I would come in as music director. You have to put the floppy in, clunk, boot up to the floppy, and then the PDP-8 would generate on dot matrix teletype a playlist for the DJs to play.
That is incredible.
And it was such a pain to use, I accidentally broke it.
Oh, no.
And we got a PC because this is 1984,
right.
Kids. It's time to get with the, I think we got a Mac, actually. We might have
like a microcomputer revolution was happening.
Yeah. But you have to use a PDP-8. And you know who else loves the PDP 7 and 8 is Mr. Steve Gibson.
Okay. Good.
And he actually said at one point, I don't know if he'll really do this, that his dream is when he retires to take a PDP 8 and rewrite the operating system.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, no, that's good. That sounds like a good use of time.
Man.
That Dave Plummer guy from Microsoft brought up a PDP-11. He bought one and brought it back to life.
This is how they grew up, right? This is their first experience with the computer.
This is like, other types of people might buy a muscle car, to them.
The same thing.
Or I might buy an Atari 400.
Yeah.
Right. You might buy a Amiga.
Yeah, an Amiga. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. See?
Interesting.
So good tip. So is this can you look at it online?
Yeah, you can go read the assembly. You can download it. You can run it in an emulator.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that is really. I'll have to look at it. Yeah, that's cool.
And then this is not a Windows app or anything like that, but I didn't want to do the same browser again. So I this is actually kind of a big release. But Adobe actually put out Photoshop, like actual Photoshop, for the iPhone this week. And I don't know if you've looked at this. It's pretty freaking good. Now, I believe you have to have a paid Photoshop plan to access it, but it has all the same icons as Photoshop. And like if you use like a modern, like if you use Photoshop today, like Elements especially, the default UI is not the workspace. It's one of those like, what do you want to do next kind of things, and so it sort of works like that. So you open a file basically, and then it gives you all the icons.
Is it more like Photoshop Elements?
Yeah, probably. I'm not really even sure anymore what the difference is, but it's well, how they had like Photoshop, they had a mobile Photoshop app called something Photoshop.
Well, they've had Photoshop, but it was not full.
Yeah,
Photoshop.
But it's something else. Yeah. It's like Photoshop Essentials or Photoshop.
This is
something.
Now available. Yeah.
No, this is literally Photoshop.
iPhone,
Yeah. No, I know it's right, and it also works on an iPad. So. We're getting it. Yeah, it's getting kind of interesting.
Now we have something.
Yeah. So if you didn't see this is worth Photoshop. Yeah, this is worth looking at. Like it is not the stripped down nothing that you think it is. It's actually
I picked a bad time to give up my Creative Cloud subscription, didn't I?
Yeah. Well, that's always the way, isn't it? I mean, it's interesting. This was better than I thought it was going to be. Like this might actually be I don't want to say the term game changer. It's a little overused, but it's pretty amazing.
Well, and people do stuff on their phones. There's no two ways about it, right? So
right.
It's got to be the thing.
Yep.
Impressive.
Yeah, I think so.
It is a statement about the amount of horsepower in an iPhone these days.
Right. And thank God they don't have those stupid small screens anymore. Now you can actually see the damn thing. I know this is a sore spot for some people. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. You ready for some run as?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this week's run as I did on Exchange Server because it had been a while.
I know I saw the on-prem.
Well, this was what the debate became, right? Michael de Roge is from the Netherlands, does a definitive book, the Exchange Administrator's Handbook, and does there's a lot of scripts. If you were operating an Exchange server, you've run some of his PowerShell scripts. It's kind of inevitable, right? Like he is the guy. Good. And so we've been talking a while about I really want to talk about Exchange and just what it's like in 2025 because there hasn't been an on-prem version of Exchange Server shipped since 2019.
Jeez.
Right, they're overdue, and he made the point because, of course, he's very much an insider. And so forth. He says, they've already publicly stated that there will be another on-prem version of Exchange probably this year, but it will be subscription based. So you are going to
keep it on-prem, but
yeah. Right, and it's just, but the bigger conversation in this, if you care to get in the nitty-gritty, and I do, was just how much work it is to run a mail server today that won't automatically get all of its mail rejected, right? Like because the new security rules and filters and all of these sorts of things, they're really hard to maintain. Like it's difficult to actually make a running Exchange server today. And so once again, it's like all the encouragement is to go to the online product one way or the other, right? And but we went back and forth on this, just the challenges of what it's like. And you make a lot of that pain go away when you can just go online. Oh, that being said, there's still no good hybrid mode, non-hybrid mode. If you come from on-prem and you're moving online, you still end up with at least one server left behind in a weird state. It's difficult to actually hang it up. It's an Active Directory thing. When you uninstall your last Exchange server and your on-prem environment, it pulls all this stuff out of Active Directory related to mail, which causes problems. And so you kind of have to leave that in place if you're going to continue to function that way. Hey, no one ever said this stuff was easy.
That's the whole point. It's a flex. I run my own server at home. I run Exchange.
That's past flex into sort of I like abusing myself.
Yeah, it's masochism.
I like suffering.
From flex to masochist in one easy step. By the way, Paul, I got it running. Look at this. Hide background.
Right.
Removing back. Let's see. I mean, you could do this in the iPhone by just direct. What? That's okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Interesting.
On the screen, like the thing that's interesting to me is like on mine, it was when I was using it was dark mode, but like the it mirrors the like the Photoshop desktop UI. Like I was like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
This is actually, this is not bad.
Yeah.
Huh. All right, Richard. You have 22 minutes and 15 seconds
it's gonna be
to sell us some brown liquor. We've got Stephen Wolfram's going to be on the horn in a minute.
I'm in a panic. Absolutely.
Don't panic. But the smartest man in the world is about to join us.
No kidding.
Don't panic, but I mean, maybe panic. I don't know.
I'm going back to my stomping grounds. So as you've heard me tell stories before, when I go to Scotland, I like to go stay at the Hotel Craigielachi, the Craigielachi Hotel on the Spey River. And Rothes is a town in Moray, which is just north of the Craigielachi, which is also on the Spey River. That town is old. It's been around since there's records going back to 600 AD for that town. And it's not huge, but it is whiskey central, right? This is the Spey side. So literally within the limits of the town are the distilleries Speyburn, Glenturret, Glenspey, and Glenrothes. The Rothes Castle, which is a ruin now, built back in 1200, is right beside the Glenspey distillery on the southern side of town. So, on the way from the Craigielachi to Rothes, you're going to pass Aberlour, Macallan, and Dewars. So, which is also, where other whiskeys are made too. And not surprisingly, because this is Scotland, they got the railway in 1858, which is sort of your catalyst for an awful lot of these things. So the original Glenrothes distillery, built in 1878, 20 years after the railway came through, from a converted sawmill, and started producing whiskey. And long before the Diageos and United Distillers of the world, there was a group formed around Glenrothes and an Islay whiskey called Bunnahabhain, called the Highland Distillers. And this is, we're talking the late 1800s. So this is when France has its crisis in wine production, when they get the blight that kills a bunch of the grapes and drives the price of brandy through the roof. So whiskey sales go crazy. And these guys were right there in that hot time, and they bought up a bunch of other distilleries, including Glenglassaugh and Tamdhu. And then even after the 1800s into the early 1900s, they bought Highland Park. They also own Glenturret, which is famous grouse. And in the 90s, they bought Macallan. But going back to the early times, they had all the usual problems for old style distilleries, including an explosion in 1903 that leveled the distillery and big chunks of the town. This is because you were vaporizing alcohol with fire, and sometimes bad things happen.
Yeah, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often, actually.
Well, it doesn't happen anymore because by the 1960s, they go to steam for heating a distillery. So the fire is outside the building and you're pumping hot water in and everything is safer, right? It's the right way to go. 60s and 70s is when everybody converts to that, so fewer people die. But you'll also notice if you ever go into these still buildings, we do the tours, that they're open air, right? That they're basically environmental temperatures because they always need to be vented.
Right.
In the early 1920s, a group called the Berry Brothers starts using Glenrothes to make a blended whiskey called Cutty Sark, which is a fairly famous whiskey.
I've heard of that, yes.
It's also the early 1920s, which is when Prohibition is on, so they immediately try and start selling it to the Americans. Berry Brothers has been around a long time, formed in 1698 as wine merchants, and of course they got into liquor and so forth. And so they expanded into this market and bought into the space, and were right through the Prohibition making money smuggling Cutty Sark into that. So they actually had a really good brand reputation when Prohibition ended. Now you can fast forward to the 1990s with this group called the Edgerton Group. So the Edgerton Group comes from Glenn Grant and a bunch of or from William Grant and a bunch of the others. These were the counterpoint folks that were sort of anti-Diageo, anti-Suntory, anti-big conglomerate. They were Scots buying Scottish stuff. And so they acquired Highland Distillers, which at that point was over 100 years old. They've been around a long time. And actually took the group private. So got out of the public markets to help protect it. It was very much their mindset that they wanted to keep all of these different products, including Macallan. It's not a huge group. It's not like Diageo with 30-something distilleries. It's half a dozen. But very nice whiskeys, and they kept it private. And in part of that process, they ended up buying up. They actually sold off the Glenrothes distilleries back to Berry Brothers, and then turned around in 2017 and bought it all back. So at this particular moment, Edgerton Group owns the whole cluster, and Berry Brothers is out of that business. And they, including Cutty Sark, is now over there as well. The distillery itself is interesting in the way that it operates. They don't do separate maltings the way that a lot of other distilleries do, but they do it with one of their other distilleries, Tamdu, which is about 20 kilometers away. That's where the maltings happen. They actually do their own, and then bring it back up to Glenrothes to do their own mash and milling and all the distillations. They have single 5-ton mash tun with copper top, 20 washbacks, of which 12 are Oregon pine, 8 are stainless. That ratio of 2-to-1 wood to steel is very deliberate, part of their flavor profile. They use your favorite, the yeast cream, to do a 55-hour fermentation to 8%.
My favorite.
That's absolutely a thing, right? And then they now have, over the literally century, have added stills to the point where they have 5 washes and 5 spirits, all identical. The wash stills, slightly smaller spirit stills, which is weird. Normally, wash stills are bigger. And these are very tall neck stills with bulbs for maximized reflex, because they keep their still running at a higher, putting out a higher level product than most. They put out about 68 to 72%, and they actually barrel at 68, which is unusual. Most most Scottish whiskeys are barreled at 63. Almost all of that's really because of bourbon casks, which they rarely use. They only do a little bit of bourbon. They mostly barrel in sherry. They also make their own barrels. They do not use any of the shared cooperages. Glenrothes has their own cooperage. Now, when it was run by Berry Brothers did not do an age statement whiskey. They did these things they called vintages. They had their own names for them. But since Edgerton has taken it back again, as of 2017, they are doing vintages. And I picked the base vintage, which I've had, called the Glenrothes 15. This is almost entirely sherry cask. So it's very rich, dark, reddish whiskey. 43%. It is available in the US. If you can find it in specialty stores, usually running about $100 US. I consider it a super old school Scottish whiskey. In that,
is it worth it?
This is a first drink whiskey.
Is it really peaty?
No peat at all. It's a Speyside.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So very sweet and light, dark colored. It's a nice drinking whiskey. But yeah, for $100 a bottle, have one. And then fix to the famous
Cheap
grouse,
stuff.
which you'll be paying the same guys. But, that's a $20 bottle of whiskey.
Or have a Cutty Sark.
Or the Cutty Sark. Yeah. Cutty Sark will work too. They own both Cutty Sark and famous grouse. So you have your choice.
Richard Campbell, at a very nice episode of what we now are going to start calling Richard's Brown Liquor segment. By the way, I like that Microsoft band jacket, I guess. Or maybe you're a Scottish. I don't know what this is.
That sure looks like an RCMP surge.
It does.
Jersey,
He's a Mountie. That's what he is.
It looks like a Mountie. Yeah.
He's a Mountie with somehow working for Microsoft. Thank you to Joe Esposito once again for his lovely Photoshop skills. Not made on an iPhone, I have no doubt.
Yeah.
And Ricardo Campbell, the Brown Liquor segment. I love it. I love it.
I always drink brown liquor, but when I do,
he does look like the most interesting brown liquor man in the world.
Yep,
that is something.
Wait a minute. Let's get Paul full size. There you go. And let's get him on the left. There you go. And then let's get me in there in the middle and on the left. And then I hope I didn't make you sick with all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, they should never give me control of the mouse. I just want to say, thank you so much. Once again, another wonderful edition of Windows Weekly. Richard Campbell is at runasradio.com. That's where you'll find his podcast.net rocks. Also, the podcast he does with Carl Franklin, Run As Radio.
I think you switched those up, but yes.
Versa, you're the Run As Radio guy. You and Carl are .net rocks. Thank you. Yes, Paul Thurrott is at thurrott.com. That's easy to remember. THURROTT.
It's not easy to spell, but it's easy to remember.
There's 2 R's, 3 T's, an O, and a U. Put them in any order, and you'll get there.
Yeah, probably.
This works. You should register all possible combinations. Yeah. His books are Windows Everywhere and Field Guide to Windows 11. Now with AI are available at leanpub.com.
Maybe soon.
I love that idea.
Yeah, we'll see.
And I like the idea of an audiobook of Windows Everywhere. That you could do. That's easy.
I don't want to read it. That's for sure.
Yeah, let the AI read it.
Maybe they could train it on my voice and then it would sound like me reading it.
I can get you Helen Mirren.
It's like dripping with sarcasm.wave. I don't know.
And then
you're not going to believe what Microsoft did next. Yep.
We do Windows Weekly every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1900 UTC. You can watch us do it live. The lip sync is not as good, but you can watch us do it live on a variety of platforms. If you're in the club, of course, Club Twit Discord has the stream and also the chatting going on behind the scenes. But we also use YouTube, Twitch, Kick, X.com, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I think I got them all. Anyway,
is it on Vine or what?
It would be.
What's left?
If Vine weren't dead, it would. We're on everywhere we can because we want to make sure everybody gets a chance to watch. But you don't have to watch live. Most people listen at their convenience. The way to do that, of course, download a copy of the show, audio or video, from twit.tv/WW. When you're there, you can also find a link to our YouTube channel dedicated to Windows Weekly. That's good to have for sharing clips. YouTube makes that very easy, and everybody can watch it, and it helps promote the show. So thank you in advance. You can also subscribe on your favorite podcast player. That's probably the best way to do it. Find a podcast client, whether it's Pocket Casts, which I think a lot of people use, or Apple's Podcasts, or Overcast, or I can go on and on. Any RSS feeder should be able to subscribe, and that way you'll get it automatically as soon as we're done editing it of a Wednesday afternoon. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
If you're watching live, stay tuned. We're going to do Intelligent Machines in a few minutes. Very special guest Stephen Wolfram will join us.
Whoever that is.
Some smart guy. I don't know. One of the most accomplished people in the world. I really want to get the people who've been doing this for a long time to help us understand this stuff because, like you, Paul, I love it. I'm interested. I know it can do stuff, but I'm
pretty sure it's just a magic trick. You know, that's my level of understanding.
I need to know more. We asked Richard.
That was my card.
That is one very clever stochastic parrot. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
You knew I had a quarter behind my ear. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time on Dripping with Sarcasm. Wave. No, I'm sorry, on Windows Weekly. Have a wonderful week.